Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Friday Night Live Nurse Penny Show. How are you? I am going to have to wear my glasses. We'll get these things figured out yet. Hi, Patty. Hi, Enlighten. Let me get my comments up here on YouTube and Facebook. Welcome, everybody. I hope you had a great week. It's been busy here. I just wanted to welcome everybody. It's Friday. We've made it through the week. I don't know that it gets any easier as you get older. I'm generally one that doesn't go in for a lot of excitement or anything like that, but it has been a week. Let me just bring you up to date. So we had started 8 days ago. Go back, probably almost a week and a half ago. My son's car broke down. I think I told you guys this, and that his axle. He was on the interstate. There was no shoulder because they were doing construction, and his axle snapped. And it was just grace of God that he did not wreck the car. But he had to stop. He knew there was a problem with it. He had called Don and told him there was some kind of noise. He thought it was the engine. And so his fiance was following him. Well, apparently, he said it made this loud, what sounded like a pop or explosion, and the RPMs went to 0 and he couldn't get it off the road, and there was no place to get it off the road. So they had their hazards on, and they're right there in the 2-lane, the first lane of the 2-lane road, waiting for a tow truck. And they were just scared to death that they were going to get hit. I was scared to death they were going to get hit. And thank God they didn't. And so he had it towed up to the Mercedes dealership, because he said, well, it's going to cost so much a mile to have it brought to Winchester where we live. So he took it up to the Mercedes dealership. He got his, estimate on what it was going to cost to fix it. And I think it was $6,300 or $6,600, which, he's 26 years old. He doesn't have that much money. We don't even have that much money that we could just give him. And so he was just really, really stressed. And I said, you know what? We're going to figure this out. It's okay. So he called and talked to his grandpa, and he tried to apply for a loan, and, and it just, nothing was working out. He was really stressed. And I thought, well, I'm going to, so I was telling my friend Tracy Beans from Uncover DC, I was telling her about it. And she said, create a GoFundMe and I'll share it on my show. So I created it. She shared it on her show, and I shared it on my book club. And so we raised like $700 in, I don't know, 4 or 5 days or something like that. I was really excited. I'm like, wow. Oh, backspace. So I actually called the shop down here where we had really originally wanted him to take it, and got them to, I told them everything that was wrong with it, and they gave us an estimate. And with towing back down here and all of that, paying the diagnostic fee and everything up in Lexington, it was going to be $4,000. Still a lot of money. And so we were just counting on that God was going to do this for us. And I don't know that I've ever been so committed to just handing it to God and letting it go. I just knew I needed to do that. And so Wednesday we had book club, and at the end of the book club, I should have pulled the video, but at the end of the book club, I prayed. So Jake's agnostic. My oldest son is agnostic. My daughter's like somewhere between agnostic and maybe I believe something, which is strange because they were all raised in a Christian home. And it's something Don and I have been praying about for a really long time. And so Wednesday, I prayed that God would move in such a way that Jacob and Jess would know that it could only have been God, and that this would glorify God, and all of that good stuff. And I let it go completely in that moment, right? So then you guys started donating, and we got up to like 671, I think. And I thought, oh, this is great. And I had shared it on Facebook and stuff like that before, Twitter, and as I said, Tracy had shared it. So today's Friday. I want to say Wednesday night, and it's late, like 10 something. Tracy texts me, and she said, hold on, I'll tell you exactly what she said. God love that girl. It's so funny that we've been able to strike up such a great friendship just because I did one thing on her show. Actually, the way we met was I sent her my near-death experience. We've had a lot of conversations since then. Hold on. Good night. Oh, here we go. I found it. Well, shoot. Maybe I didn't. Give me a little second. It's worth waiting for. Okay. So I get this text at 9:40 Wednesday night, and it says, an angel came to visit. And then she linked my Give, Send, Go campaign. And I thought, okay, I go to the Give, Send, Go campaign, and there is a donation there for the remainder that we were short. Hi, Lisa. So we were short, um, we had like $670, so $3,330 or whatever it was that we were short. And I said, was that you? And she gave me the little kissy face. Oh man, I lost the spot. Doggone it. Hold on. Kissy face will be easy to find. She says, no, it wasn't me. It was a dear friend. Now go get that boy's car fixed. I said, oh, wow, wow, wow. So wow, I'm blown away. You should listen to my prayer from the end of today's show. I prayed specifically about this. And Tracy said, he answered. I said, I'm on with Jake. He's crying and laughing. She said, that makes me very happy. I heard your prayer. So she went and she listened to the prayer. Um, I am so glad we had this conversation tonight, he and I, this friend of hers who donated. She said, I'm floating. I love you, Penny. I said, that is by far one of the most emotional and gratifying calls I've made in a long time. This morning at the show's end, I prayed. I told God, you know what Jake's needs are. And I prayed that he would move in such a way uh, that everyone would know it was God who brought the blessing. I said, I'll have to go back and listen to the exact words. Jake couldn't even speak when I told him about the donation. He was crying. He said, are you serious, Mom? Are you serious? I kept saying, yes, sweetheart. I prayed about it on my show today, that God would bring the funds in such a way that all would know it was God that compelled the giving. Jake was crying. He said, I was so depressed today. Um, he said, I can't even fix my own car. There's some personal stuff I don't want to read. Um, but people came through, strangers. Then he started laughing uncontrollably and yelled for Jess and told her that we had the money. Um, anyway, I told Tracy, I said, you and I know that God did it. God loves that kid. And then I told her, he'd like to send a thank you note. And then here's the prayer. She sent it to me. I don't know if you guys will be able to hear it. Turn my volume on. That you will provide those. Father, I want to thank you for the people that have gotten us up to $600 on the Give, Send, Go campaign. I know that you know what the financial need is and that you're going to move in a huge way and that is going to be to your glory and will be assigned to Jacob and Jessica of your hand in their lives. And we just thank you for that, for your provision and your love through your people. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. How awesome is that? How awesome is that? That's the coolest thing ever. Um, so anyway, that was just great. We got that donation. We hit $4,000. It only took 8 days. Um, and we're getting ready. We have to wait for all the funds to clear the account and everything, and then we can create that. But praise God, what an answer to prayer for us in rapid fashion. Very rarely do my prayers get answered in rapid fashion, but this one was incredible. And I wasn't even going to pray about it on my show. And I thought, you know what? It is encouraging to other believers when you pray and God answers a prayer and they get to see that happen. So don't be proud. It's okay to pray about this in front of people, because I tend to be more private with praying. But it just made it was one of the best phone calls I've ever made as a mom. It was incredible. Craxton Jackson says, hey, Penny, got a new solar power supply going here. Very nice. All right. Patty's really enjoying Bean's show. Yeah, she does a great show. Tracy Beans. 300-watt solar panels to power some basic stuff. Are you in a camper, Craxton? Yes, glory to God. Isn't that the greatest thing? So the good news did not end there. So I have this friend named Anthony Cheen, and I told you guys about this on Wednesday. I did a documentary on my near-death experience with Anthony. He hired a filmmaker, and we did that I want to say at the end of last summer, and it turned out really well. It's on, hi, Isaac's mom. Um, it's on YouTube. If you just look up Anthony Cheen, Chene, and Penny Whitbrodt, you'll find it. So he had called me around the first of the year and said, hey, we're going to do a bigger documentary with some bigger names. And I want to pick a few NDE experiencers that I've interviewed, and I'd like for you to be one of them. And I was like, yeah, sure. Well, however I can help. And so I didn't hear anything. Well, he contacted me last week, I guess, and said, hey, ran into some trouble, had to put the project on hold, but we're back on now. So if you don't know anything about near death experience, the community, the people who study it, Raymond Moody, Dr. Atwater, and Pim Van Lommel are three of the big, big, big people. Well, they're in this documentary. I'm in it, and two other near death experiencers. And I'm the only one that he lacks getting film on. And so he was trying to figure it out. His video person is in North Carolina. And so he's like, well, I have to figure out how to send him to you. Well, 2 weeks ago, last week, I can't remember, my time's all running together. I did a talk for the Asheville Wisdom Exchange, did a Zoom talk for them. And the pastor of Asheville, I guess, Unity Church said, wow, it'd be so great if you could come sometime and talk to our church. And I thought, well, that's cool. If I'm ever in the area, I'll do that. So I messaged Anthony back, and I said, where at in North Carolina is this videographer? And he says, Asheville, of course. I said, how about you send me to him? So I contact the pastor at the church, and I said, hey, it looks like I might be coming into town. Oh, you're in Charlotte. It looks like I might be coming into town. I would love to, come and speak at your church. Do you have any congregants that might be willing to put me up? And he's like, well, we could put you up. And I'm like, would you possibly be able to pick me up and take me back to the airport? And they said yes. So I get back with Anthony, and I'm like, hey, I've got accommodations covered. I'm guessing they'll probably feed me. All we got to do is come up with plane fare, which was cheaper than sending the guy here. And so it looks like filming is only going to take a day. And I'm going in, hopefully, if we go at the middle to end of August, I'll go on a Friday, and then I'll come back late on Monday. And it was just so cool the way that all worked out. Then I get a message from this guy who, I don't know if he's from Pakistan or if he's from India, but he says to me, hey, I would love to meet you and interview you about your near-death experience and translate that into my languages so that my people could know the story of God and you meeting him and, what it did in your life. And I was like, that would be so cool. Absolutely. I would love to do that. And I'm thinking, is he in Pakistan or India? Well, turns out he's in Pennsylvania. So he says, I'll just come to you. And I'm like, well, all right, let's do it. So he's like, I'll be there in the next 2 weeks. And I'm like, wait, no, I'm booked up. You can't come that soon. So we're thinking September or so for that. But how cool to be able to tell my story to him and for him to translate it into other languages for me. And what reach that'll give us and how that might help some people. So I was just super excited about that. And that's been my week. Is that incredible? I hope your week was at least safe and good and all of that stuff. I don't have weeks like this very often, but boy, when I do have one, I want to share it with you guys. I'm making sure my phone ringer's off here. So anyway, that's a lot. It's a lot. Oh, Cracks and Jackson's in Charlotte. How far is Charlotte from Asheville? Patty says, seeing his hand blessed us all through your son's trial. Thank you so much. And our kitty's better. Hold on. I can't do it on here. Abby is so much better. She's still struggling a little bit with her appetite, but she is just a ton better than she was. And so I took a little cute picture of her so you guys could see her. Look at that sweet angel baby. Hope you could see that. And so I was trying to take a picture of her, and you know how you try to take a cute picture of your kids. For me, it was my cat. And Your cat's just not cooperating, right? Hold on, I'm going to refresh this and see where you guys are. Looks like you're almost to the part where I show the. Okay, so I'm trying to take a picture of her, and I'm like, Abby, Abby, girl, Abby. Oh, really? Yeah, our cat, Lisa's cat's name is Abby too. Our cat's named Abby the Tabby. Um, Middle name the. Asheville is a communist stronghold. I'll be sure to dodge the communists. So here, I said to Abby, I'm like, be still. Let me take your picture. Look cute, Abby, girl, Abby. You know how you do. And I get this. I don't know what the heck that was supposed to be. And then she tops it, and she gives me this. That looks like a dang alien. What the heck is that? Just can't. Can you see it for the glare? What the heck? I'm like, well, I can't post those, but I did because they were super funny. Denise says, I agree. This week, got to have foot surgery again. Oh no, it'll be the 12th foot surgery between, whoa, hold on, it slid up. I can't see it now. 12th foot surgery between both feet, 6 each foot. Still miss my wife, Denise, but love listening to you, Penny. Love, Paul. Oh, Paul, I love you, buddy. I'm glad to see you. We haven't seen you in a while. Did you have an accident or something? What's with all the foot surgeries? Attitude just like her mama, for sure. Craxton's in Charlotte. Oh, traveling nurse. That's cool. That's cool. Sonia says Anthony's channel's how she found me. Tiny World. Well, I'm going to be working with Anthony again. I'm going to have to get up in a minute and turn down the air conditioning or up. I never know which way that is, so that it's not so cold in here. I might text on and see if he'll come do it, because I have to kind of undo a bunch of stuff to get up. Absolutely. Your story, Isaac's mom says, your story will truly bless those people as it has us. I sure hope so. I feel like there's so little we can do in life. There's just, how do you fix all this stuff? Everything, as you're going to see tonight, is just a hot mess. And I mean, yes, I bring awareness to stuff, and I try to educate people so that they don't get taken in by things that are clearly not okay. But I mean, I can't fix things. And so I feel like if I can keep telling that story of my near-death experience, maybe that'll fix some things. I'll get messages all the time from people telling me how it affected them. Somebody just in the last 2 weeks sent me a message saying that they were considering suicide until they saw my video talking about my near-death experience and God, and it turned them around, and it's just made a huge difference in their lives. I mean, you can't really ask to do better than that. Let's call husband here. Here we go. You guys love to call Don. Let's call Don. We'll get him while he's still awake. Poor guy. So hot today, like 90 or something.
Oh, babe.
Hey, babe. Are you naked?
Yeah.
No, you're not.
Well, I just thought, hey, last time I don't even remember what I answered last time.
Liar!
What's up?
Will you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Will you come down here and turn the air conditioning warmer a little bit?
Warmer?
I don't know if that's down or up. Is it down? I think if you're turning it down, it's going to be colder. Or are you turning it down and it's not going to run as much?
The easiest way to remember is you want to increase the temperature.
So turn it up.
So yes.
Okay.
So that's
that
how you
feels
make
totally
it
wrong.
No.
Are you sure? Have you Googled it?
I don't need to Google it. I know how it works.
Sassy.
Well, I'm not trying. I'm just saying I do know how it works.
I don't need to Google it. I know how it works.
Well, I didn't mean it that way.
Well, all right. Well, drag yourself on down here and help me.
All right, I'll be right there. I gotta put some clothes on. I'll be right there.
Are you really naked?
No.
Oh, okay. Bye. It's so funny. And yes, our conversations are always like that. Craxton says, Asheville's, oh yeah, communist stronghold. Only so much we can do. Naked and afraid. I don't know why he'd be afraid. There's nothing up there that can hurt him. Down is colder. Up is warmer. Down is colder. Sun comes up. Oh, okay. Yeah, that helps. Those things work for me. What is that where you give somebody something else to remember? I guess like an association. Gypsy Princess, hello, welcome. Good evening. Your hubby sounds hot. He's freaking smoking. I'm telling you. He is. He's 60. How old am I? 52. I'll be 53 in August, and he'll be 63 in October. Um, and yeah, he's smoking hot. I'm pretty lucky. And he can fix stuff. I mean, what about that? We don't want to give him the big head. Cracked me up. Isaac's mom says, "I work at Cracker Barrel in the gift shop. I get to share the love of God all day long." Oh, that's so sweet. I love the Cracker Barrel gift shop. I love their little flowery. They have flowery stuff. Like, I love flowers. I'm such a girl. For being such a tomboy growing up, I'm such a girl. Craxton's 58, still kicking. All right. If you guys want to shout out your age, go on ahead. I brought orange juice. If you didn't watch on Wednesday for book club, I'm reading The Giver, and I'm on air, right? Like this. Hey, babe. I'm on air, and I can feel my blood sugar just plummeting. I mean, I'm getting dizzy, and I'm thinking, okay, I think there's only like 3 pages left in this chapter. I don't want to like just stop suddenly. But I was telling people Wednesday that during COVID, when I was so sick, my blood pressure crashed during a Facebook Live, and it crashed so low that I did. Would you set it to, babe?
75.
Yeah, that works. Thank you.
I also turned the blower down to low instead of high.
Okay. I think
Is that
that'll
okay?
do. Yes.
All right.
That seems great.
You look great.
You
Smart brainiac looking thing, you.
Thanks, babe. Now look, he kissed me. I can't think of what I was talking about. Oh, COVID. So when I had COVID, listen to him laugh at me. When I had COVID, I was doing a live stream, and my blood sugar crashed. Like, it crashed so bad I couldn't read the comments. I couldn't. Everything was blurry, and people were typing in call Don," but I couldn't read it. And I just kept saying, "I'm just so tired." And my speech was slurred. They probably thought I was having a stroke. Well, my friend Eric was watching, and he has Don's phone number, and they're all going back and forth in the chat. "Oh my gosh, what do we do? Does anybody know where she lives? Can we call the police?" All this stuff, right? And I don't even think I don't know if I stopped the stream or if I just closed the computer or what. But Eric gets hold of Don. Don comes home, and I'm wandering around in the hall. I don't remember any of that. He checks my blood sugar. It was 40 something, I think. I've had seizures and got in the 30s and had seizures before. And checks my blood sugar, gets me all straightened up. I have to get back on and let everybody know that I'm alive. Scared them to death. So I didn't want that to happen during book club. And so I'm like, okay, we're going to have a little intermission while I run upstairs and get juice. And so now Don makes me take the juice. It should be solid on this end, Denise. I know people were complaining Wednesday about it being a little spotty, but here we're plugged right into to fiber internet. So maybe refresh and that'll help. Lisa, I will let Don know you said hi. Let's see. Oh my goodness, who else is here? Isaac's mom will be 65 in September. That's awesome. You'll qualify for the reduced camping prices, the little pass at Kentucky Parks. I think it might be all federal park. I don't know how it works. But Don's just a few years away from that, and we love camping, so we're excited about getting there. You know you're getting old. You know you're getting old when you're excited about the camping rebate. So sad. Betty says I'm old enough to know better, but I do it anyway. Cracks and Jackson, babe. Yeah, that's little pet names. Yeah, we kissed. I completely, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm married. I don't know why I'm sorry. Now I'm embarrassed. All right, there. We'll move on to the next thing. Stream Live Patriot says, shocking video. This video will shock the world. Everything is exposed. I cannot believe what information Okay, guys, I wouldn't click on that because I don't know if that's a safe link or not. And I wouldn't want anybody to get a virus in here. If you want me to cover something on the show, my email is in the show notes, and you can always email me something ahead of time so I can screen it and make sure it's safe. Yeah, it is spam. I don't know how. Can I block that person? We'll block them just for this live stream. There we go. Failed to mute. Why did it fail to mute? Just mute them. Oh, for the love of Pete. Hold on, let me try it again. No, it won't let me mute you. All right, don't do it again because I don't have any way to stop you. I tried for this live stream for 5 minutes, maybe. No, it won't let me mute. Interesting. Okay, well, just don't click on that, guys. Craxon Jackson says, something stream signal 100%. I get excited about power supply packs. Craxon, I get that because we're talking about getting some solar for the small camper, just the truck camper that we have, so that we can take advantage of going because we have to get electric spots or I'll die. We don't real camp. I real camped for years though, so don't judge me. I just can't anymore. I did it when the kids were little, and I don't have it in me. I'm not getting eaten alive by bugs. We've got the little screened-in thing. I have to have air conditioning. I need a mattress, and I'm just owning it. That's who I am, and judge me if you will, but I don't care. Gypsy Princess says, you know you've made the big time when you get scammers in your live stream. Is that the sign? Yay! We've got 36 people watching, and I've got a scammer. That's so cool. It's a milestone, I suppose. Like, pooping on the potty. Betty says, I just did some research on camping solar panels. Seems like most of all of them are crap. Oh, good to know. I think you kind of got to get the ones that you can just put on the ground, because if you try to put them on the camper, they're going to get beat up by trees. I don't know. We've done research, and you need the inverter and the proverter. I don't know what all you need, but you need a lot, and it's heavy. And I don't have, with the truck camper, you just don't have a lot of places to put stuff. So I don't know how we would even do it, but we could fall camp for sure because we can load up with water and everything beforehand. 40 in the chat. We're killing it. We do pretty well. We usually, a lot of people watch on replay, so we'll usually get, between 12. I think we've had as many as 2,400, I think, maybe. If you go back, like the really early stuff when COVID was really hopping, I mean, I've got videos that have like 14,000 views. If you've not watched some of the earlier stuff, you should watch it. It's pretty entertaining. Okay, so this is the first story I wanted to show you, but I got it late because I forgot I was going to tell you about it. Talk to Craxon about power supply packs. That's right. So I'm just going to have to read it to you from my phone. But what made me mad about it was, so do you guys remember the Merchant of Death guy, Victor Bout, that Biden exchanged for, was it Brittany Griner, the women's basketball player? Do you remember this? And people were like, why wouldn't you have there's a Marine that was being held in Russia as well, I guess on suspicion of spying or something. And instead of getting both of them, trading this guy for both of them, he just got the basketball player. Hi, Debbie. Well, happy birthday to John's sister. Even the scammer, love her. So he just gets the just the basketball player. So listen to this story. This is from the New York Post, and this was July 3rd. And I didn't hear anybody cover it on Rumble anywhere. Military, been on the road, hospice now. Hospice. Why are you in hospice? I'm so confused. Oh, foot surgery. Been on the road. Who's in hospice, Paul? Okay, I'm confused. So listen to this. The convicted arms smuggler freed from a U.S. maximum security prison in a swap for WNBA star Brittany Griner last year is running for office in Russia. I remember when they released this guy, and I thought, what could possibly go wrong? Victor Bout, 56, launched a campaign for a seat in the Legislative Assembly in the, oh, for the love of God, you guys and your names, Ulyanovsk, that's pretty good, region of central Russia, as a member of the far-right Liberal Democratic Party. Doesn't that sound weird? Far-right Liberal Democratic Party. I don't even know what that is, according to Russian state-owned media. The Liberal Democratic Party is considered to be to the right of Russian President Vladimir Putin's United Russia Party and espouses a hardline ultranationalist ideology. Now, keep in mind, this is from the New York Post, so it's got that bent to it. The party demands that Russia reconquer the countries of the former Soviet Union. President Biden cut a deal with the Kremlin last December to release to Russia the so-called merchant of death. He's the merchant of death. He buys death, sells death. I don't know how that works. In exchange for Greiner, who had been imprisoned in Moscow for nearly 10 months after cannabis vape cartridges were reportedly discovered in her luggage at an airport in the Russian capital city. And she had been to Russia before. She knew better. And she'd spent the whole time she was here just slamming the country. The exchange was slammed by several Republicans at the time, including former President Donald Trump and Mike Pompeo. Bao was arrested. Now listen to this. He was arrested by U.S. federal agents in Thailand in 2008 and convicted of 4 counts of conspiring to kill Americans, acquiring and exporting anti-aircraft missiles, and sending material aid to a terrorist entity. He received a 25-year prison sentence, of which he served 10 years before the swap. Michael Braun, the former chief of operations for the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, told CBS 60 Minutes in 2010 that he considered Bout to be one of the most dangerous men on the face of the earth. We swapped him for a WNBA person, Brittany Griner, who had nothing but bad things to say about her country before she left. And I've not heard her love on her country since she's got back, to be fair. Bout joined the Liberal Democratic Party shortly after his release from prison. In a Telegram video posted a week after his release, Leonid Slutsky, the leader of the Liberal Democrat Party, it could be Slutsky, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt there, welcomed Bout into the ranks of the organization. He is a courageous man who has become a symbol of struggle for principles, for spiritual and moral foundations of today's Russia. Bout's foray into politics. Okay, and then this is the comparison that gets me. Bout's foray into politics is reminiscent of ex-spy Maria Butina, who served a 15-month, this guy got 27 years, 15-month stint in a U.S. prison after pleading guilty to a charge of conspiring to act as a clandestine foreign agent. So she pled guilty to spying, basically. She was released in 2019, returned to Russia, and got involved in politics. And I'm like, did they just say that because she was released during the Trump era? Because there's really no comparison between these two people. And there was no trade either. So I don't know how it's much like that. But anyway, yeah. So the Merchant of Death is running for office in Russia. I can't see where that might be any kind of issue. Should be all right, right? I mean, like, do you put that on your slogan? You're like, what was his name? Bout? Victor Bout, Merchant of Death 2024. I don't know how you sell that. But to them, I'm sure he's a hero because he got out, you know. I don't know. The whole thing's crazy. One thing about getting old, wait, is you tend to become invisible. So I talk more to people so they know I'm here. I feel like I have to like rein it in because I'm, you know, I don't know. You've watched me, you know how I am. Monocrystal panels will draw 100 watts. Oh. Debbie, we talked to her. Surprised he's not running for office in Biden's administration. Yeah, I tell you, things are getting pretty crazy. Tom Terrific says, sorry I'm late. Have you hit my favorite 3 topics yet? No, but methylene blue is on the schedule. I don't have Tiggle Bitties anywhere in anything tonight. And I had stuff on Lugel's iodine, but I decided to save it. Yeah, he, she, they, Brittany. I can't, and nobody watches women's basketball. I mean, yes, of course, if you can get one of your citizens back, sure. But why would you not have gotten the what is it, a Marine that's over there? I think it's a Marine. I feel bad that I can't remember his name. Um, but I would not have done that swap without getting the Marine. I wouldn't have done the swap no matter what, probably, because the Merchant of Death sounds like he's bad news, and now he's running for office. Who could have seen that coming? Us. Oh my gosh, it's freezing in here. I'm wondering if I can reach that blanket. My little legs are cold. Hold on. Gosh, everything's so far away. It's not really because I'm in a camper, but oh, hold on. That's not going to be good. There we go. The fan's just pointing up at the ceiling. It'll be all right, right? That won't hurt it. Oh, that's so much better. And you're right. Nobody watches women's basketball. In my life, I've never seen a women's basketball game, nor do I want to. If you played women's basketball, that's awesome. Sports for women are great. I just don't enjoy watching them. And to be fair, I don't watch men's basketball either, but I know of people that play or knew of people that played a long time ago. I don't know. I'm pretty much illiterate with sports. I used to love football, and then they pulled all their crap, and so I can't enjoy that anymore. And Don doesn't really like to watch football, and you can't watch football by yourself. Just sitting there yelling, carrying on, eating chips and dip by yourself. It's just not any fun. I got to have somebody to do it with. All right. So our first story today is about Chris Wray, and I'm going to share my screen here. Okay. Hopefully you guys can see that pretty well. So Chris Wray, and yes, I did make this image of Chris Wray on, I think it was Bing AI, which I thought was pretty cool. Chris Wray ravaged over FBI's illegal censoring of American citizens, as revealed in the Missouri v. Biden lawsuit with Louisiana prominent doctors and the Gateway Pundit. This is by Jim Huff, who is with the Gateway Pundit. So the hearing oversight of the Federal Bureau of Investigation examined the politicization of the nation's preeminent law enforcement agency under the director of Wray. Dang it, my camera, I'm not going to be able to see the bottom of that screen. Let's see if we move this down just a little. Now, I don't know if you can see me or not. We'll see. This is no joke. U.S. District Judge Terry Doughty ruled on Independence Day that the Biden administration, including the DOJ and lawless, it's right in the way, FBI, must immediately halt their, we'll get it yet, halt their censoring of American, I can scroll the screen, goofy, censoring of American citizens online and on social media. Representative Mike Johnson grilled Chris Wray on the ruling by Missouri, Louisiana. Several prominent doctors, that sentence is awful. So Mike Johnson says, then on July 4th, we had the explosive 155-page opinion from a federal court in my home state, Louisiana. It explains in detail that the FBI has been directly involved in what the court says is, quote, arguably the most massive attack against free speech in United States history. The court ordered the White House, DOJ, and FBI, among others, to immediately cease colluding with and coercing social media companies to suppress American speech. Of course, conservative speech in particular. Director Wray, I find it stunning you made no mention of this court opinion, either in your opening statement today or in this lengthy 14-page report that you prepared on July 12th, which is 8 days after the court ruling. Have you read the ruling, sir? Chris Wray, I'm familiar with the ruling. He won't even say he read it. That's how disrespectful he is. I'm familiar with it. I might have heard something about it on TV. What the heck? And I've reviewed it with our Office of General Counsel. Representative Johnson, are you disturbed by what they've told you about the ruling if you haven't read it yourself? Chris Wray, obviously we're going to comply with the court's order, the court's preliminary injunction. We sent our guidance to the field and the headquarters about how to do that. Needless to say, the injunction itself is the subject of ongoing litigation, and so I'll decline to comment on it further. That's always his answer. This is an ongoing investigation. I decline to comment on it further. This is a subject of ongoing litigation. I decline to comment on it. You are responsible to the Oversight Committee. You have to answer their questions. It's absolutely ridiculous. And there's no reason he can't comment on it because the judge overruled their appeal to continue violating our First Amendment rights. This guy is just insufferable. I know it's here on the internet, the problem, not with you. Oh, okay. So anyway, I was so frustrated with this. This guy just wears me out. I made a meme. I love making memes. I hadn't made a meme in a while. So if you haven't seen The Office Space, the Bobs, what would you say you do here? Yeah, I just stare at my desk, but it looks like I'm working. I probably only do about 15 minutes of real actual work. Now, if you're an Office Space buff, you know that's not the answer to that scene, that it's actually the guy who takes he deals with the customers because he's got people skills. That's actually the next line, but this fit better, so I used it. If you've got to explain a meme, it's probably not a great meme. Paul Whelan in Russia. Oh, thank you, Craxon. Betty 60. The feds won't stop trying to censor people because the feds don't follow the law. Right. This is what gets me. They're like, did you see that injunction and are you doing what it said? I'm like, they had the whole Constitution and they didn't do what it said. You think they care what a judge in Louisiana says? No, they don't give a rip. They're going to keep doing what they do because that's what they do. All right, next. Larry Nassar. Guys, remember Larry Nassar? He was the one. Hi, Holden. Larry Nassar was the one who molested all of our USA gymnastics gals. 150 of them, I think. Disgraced sports doctor Larry Nassar stabbed by another inmate at federal prison. This one's by Michael Balsamo and Michael R. Sissick. The Mikes wrote this one. Disgraced sports doctor Larry Nassar, who was convicted of sexually abusing Olympic and college female gymnasts, was stabbed multiple times by another inmate at a federal prison in Florida that's experiencing staffing shortages. And what's interesting is this article ends up becoming about the staffing shortages. Of course, right? The attack happened Sunday at the United States Penitentiary Coleman. I don't even know what that sentence means. And Nassar was in stable condition on Monday. Two people familiar with the matter told the Associated Press. One of the people said Nassar had been stabbed in the back and in the chest. The two officers guarding the unit where Nassar was held were working mandated overtime shifts because of staffing shortages. Nassar is serving decades in prison for convictions in state and federal court. He admitted sexually assaulting athletes when he worked at Michigan State University and at Indianapolis-based USA Gymnastics, which trains Olympians. Nassar also pleaded guilty in a separate case to possessing images of child sexual abuse. So basically child pornography. What a great guy. The Federal Bureau of Prisons has experienced significant staff here. I'm like, the staffing shortages aren't a problem. I mean, they are. We want, if you're imprisoning people, you should be able to keep them safe. But I mean, I think they were going to find a way with this guy because that's what they do to people who molest kids in prison. Don't molest kids because if you end up in prison, it's not going to go so great for you. They have significant staffing shortages in the last few years. An Associated Press investigation in 2021 revealed nearly 1/3 of federal correctional officer positions were vacant nationwide, forcing prisons to use cooks, teachers, nurses, and other workers to guard inmates. The staffing shortages have hampered the response to emergencies at other prisons, including suicides. Other AP investigations have revealed sexual abuse and criminal conduct. Anyway, they go into the whole story about how the problem here is that the prisons don't have enough people to guard the prisoners. And so this guy got hurt. And I'm like, well, this guy technically got hurt because he molested a bunch of girls and had child porn on his computer and got caught and went to jail for it. Had he not been there, he wouldn't have been stabbed. So more than 150 women and girls testified during the 2018 sentencing of Nassar, who molested athletes under the guise of medical treatment. Some of them testified that over the course of more than 2 decades of sexual abuse, they had told adults, including coaches and athletic trainers, what was happening, but that it went unreported. More than 100 women, including Olympic gold medalist Simone Biles collectively are seeking more than $1 billion from the federal government. I hope they get it. For the FBI's failure to stop Nasser after agents became aware of allegations against him in 2015. He was arrested by Michigan State University police in 2016, more than a year later. The Justice Department Inspector General said in July 2021 that the FBI made fundamental errors in it. Is this Chris Wray's FBI? I think it is. In investigating the sexual. To be fair, Trump put Chris Wray in charge, so that was a horrible choice. But he should have been taken out by now. Against Nasser and did not treat the case with the utmost seriousness. More athletes said they were molested before the FBI swung into action. USA Gymnastics conducted its own internal investigation, and the organization's then president, Stephen Penny, reported the allegations to the FBI's field office in Indianapolis, but it took months before the Bureau opened a formal investigation. So anyway, they did a terrible job, which doesn't surprise anyone if you've been keeping up with what the FBI has been up to. Tracy Beams covered this so well. Yeah, I wasn't watching her then. Larry got some stab wounds. Larry did get some stab wounds. Yes, we could just sum it up with that, right? Larry molested a bunch of kids. Larry had child porn. Larry went to jail. Larry got stabbed. Larry's going to make it. But a good lesson to Larry. Don't do that. Nasser, there was a tweet by some boob defending him, saying that the prisons need to do more to protect inmates. I agree that the prisons need to do more to protect inmates, generally. But as I said, Nasser wouldn't be in prison. I mean, of course, none of them would be either. But, there's no shortage of information about what happens to people who molest kids in jail. So every time you're molesting a kid, you're just adding up what might happen to you one day if you get caught. So don't do it. That's the best advice I can give you, because jail's not nice. It's not run well. There's not enough people, apparently, and you could be killed in jail. So quit. There's no proclivity that's worth dying in jail over. Hold on, I'm trying to get my page back. Nasser, there was a tweet by, I saw that one. Who needs a sex offender registry when all the perverts look the same? They do kind of, don't they? One for each girl. That's a lot of stab wounds. Trump put Wray out front to expose Wray's corruption. Well, we can say that Trump put Wray out front to expose his corruption, but look what his corruption has done to this country. I mean, they're now weaponizing the FBI against American citizens, so probably not a good goal. Let's take this guy who's awful, put him up front so people see how corrupt he is, and in the process, we'll have the United States of America, citizens of these United States will be targeted by the FBI. It's just terrible. A bad decision by Trump. He's made many decisions that weren't bad, but that was a bad decision. Just is. I'm guessing he would do it differently if he had it to do it again. They should have killed him, says Holden. I try not to say stuff like that, but I'm not going to say anything in disagreement either. If that were my kid, I don't know if he'd have made it to jail. And I try to be gracious. I'm trying. That's something I need to work on. And what was interesting is when they talked to the girls, they interviewed some of the girls about this, and they felt bad about it. They were like, we just wanted him to go to jail. We didn't want him to get stabbed. We've forgiven him. We're trying to move on. I think a lot of their anger is toward the FBI and the university, all the people who didn't, the Gymnastics Federation that did nothing to protect them. And I totally get that. Tom says, do you suppose that Nasser will experience the same assault when he returns to the general population? I gotta think that they're gunning for him. I mean, they just didn't. I don't know why they didn't finish it, or maybe they thought they had. I don't know. But he's definitely not safe. I mean, I would think the only way to keep a pedophile safe in jail would be total confinement, isolation. Betty says the FBI has been weaponized for decades. True, but average citizens doesn't see it, but now they do with Ray. I agree that now people are aware, but it's just so much worse. I mean, the J6 people, you got people still sitting in there that haven't had a court date, and the whole thing's just crazy. Yeah, Trump he did not do a good job selecting people. And my guess is, we say that sitting here as though we would have done better. I don't know that I would have done better because he knew it was bad, but I don't think he knew how deep the swamp was. And so here he's thinking, yeah, I've got some people that I can trust, I can count on, and every one of them just as dirty as they can be, and that's just Washington. Um, and anybody who's been stabbed in the back and been shocked by it, can you imagine that on a federal level? It's just crazy. Um, Nasser will die in general population. I would think so. Do you remember the guys? We did a story a while back where it was two guys, I think two gay guys had adopted these two little boys. I want to say Atlanta, maybe somewhere in Georgia, maybe Virginia. I can't remember. Anyway, they were prostituting out these two little boys. I think the boys were like under 8 or something like that, and just doing horrible, horrible things to these boys. And they got caught, and they went to prison, and a prisoner beat them to death with like a ball bat or something. Don't do that. Don't do that to kids. I'm betting they want Nasser to experience a great deal of pain, not death. Oh, I bet they want to kill him. I mean, maybe they're just toying with him like a cat with a mouse. I don't know. Atlanta. Thank you, Patty. It was horrible, and who does that? I mean, there was like a whole pedophile ring that was passing these two little boys around. Just awful, awful. These poor kids. Lady Jex, you've seen what happens after we die. He should stay alive to pay for the crimes. Death is an out. I don't think death is an out if you've molested kids. I don't think they get the rosy pastures and the green grass and it's not all sunshine and flowers for people who molest children. God's pretty clear about, I think Jesus said, better that a millstone be tied around your neck and you cast to the bottom of the sea than that you harm one of these little ones. So I don't know. I think it's going to be bad for them. Okay, next case, malaria. I wanted to get into malaria. I've had a lot of people message me about malaria. And so just a few little things to know about malaria. It is, we're seeing cases in Florida and in Texas. Malaria is transmitted by a certain type of female mosquito. I can't remember the type. And when that female mosquito bites you and makes you sick, the next female mosquito that comes around and bites you, if it bites another person, it can pass it to that other person. So that would be considered local transmission. Up until this year, most of the cases of malaria that we've had in this country for a very long time were people that brought it in from other countries. But these are local transmissions. So this is definitely a concern. 50 Friday, hey y'all. So malaria cases are on the rise in Florida. This is USA Today. At least 7 cases of locally acquired malaria. I'll get it yet. Hold on. What the heck? Have been reported in the U.S. over the past 2 months, the first time the disease has had a local spread in 20 years. A public health alert was issued by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in June to advise doctors, public health authorities, and the public about the risk. 6 of the cases were identified in Sarasota County, Florida, and 1 was identified in Cameron County, Texas. None of the patients had traveled outside the state before falling ill. Okay, 2020 marks the first release of GMO mosquitoes. So I'm going to be working all of this in, okay? She had a bad bug. Okay, Sue. I don't know what that means, but okay. So the reason I'm telling you this is not from this article. I pulled this in, and it'll make sense in a little bit. So you see the malaria cases, you got 2012, they're up, 2016, 2017, but these are all cases that are imported. These aren't local spread. And then it plummets, right? Right here in this spot is when Bill Gates started releasing mosquitoes. So now a lot of people are saying, oh, it's the Bill Gates mosquitoes, and we're going to talk about that. It can't be those actual mosquitoes because they're males. But interesting that they released the GMO mosquitoes right here, and now look what's happening. And they're saying it has nothing to do with this scientific research that they're doing, releasing these mosquitoes. Okay. Okay, let's have a look at, should say, have a look at what happened there. Experiments with mosquitoes and the concern scientists expressed about the potential for unintended consequences in 2020. Florida mosquitoes, 750 million genetically modified insects, were released in 2020. Okay. Local officials in Florida have approved the release, this is 2020, guys, of 750 million mosquitoes that have been genetically modified to reduce local populations. The aim is to reduce the number of mosquitoes that carry things like dengue and Zika. The green lighting of a pilot project after years of debate drew a swift outcry from environmental groups who warned of unintended consequences. Our group condemned the plan as a public Jurassic Park experiment. Activists warn of possible damage to ecosystems and the potential creation of hybrid insecticide resistant mosquitoes. But the company involved says there will be no adverse risk to humans or the environment and points to a slate of government backed studies. And we're going to look at those. The plan to release the mosquitoes in 2021 in the Florida Keys, a string of islands. Oh, I think it was released in 2020, but maybe it was 2021. The plan to release the mosquitoes in 2021 in the Florida Keys, a string of islands, comes months after the modified mosquitoes were approved by federal regulators. In May, the U.S. Environmental Agency granted permission to the British-based U.S.-operated company Oxitec, remember Oxitec, to produce the genetically engineered male Aedes aegypti mosquitoes, which are known as Ox 5034. I'm O positive mosquito. Yeah, me too, Craxon. They eat me alive. Safe and effective mosquitoes, Patty. She said it. The plan is to release the male modified mosquitoes, who will then hopefully breed the wild female mosquitoes. However, the males carry a protein that will, now this all sounds like a very good idea, that will kill off any female offspring before they reach mature biting age. Males, which only feed on nectar, will survive and pass on the genes. Over time, the aim is to reduce the population. It all sounds very rational, right? Over time, the aim is to reduce the population of Aedes aegypti mosquitoes in the area and thereby reduce the spread of disease to humans. On Tuesday, officials in the Florida Keys Mosquito Control District gave final approval to release 750 million of the modified mosquitoes over a 2-year period. The plan has many critics, including nearly 240,000 people who signed a petition on change.org slamming Oxitec's plan to use U.S. states as a testing ground for the mutant bugs. The critics fear that the gene-drive organisms could run amok and wreak havoc if they were ever released into the wild. The insects, at this time they were in a lab, the insects could inadvertently have a negative effect on crops, for example, by eliminating important pollinators, they fear. The insect's population could also lead to other mosquitoes coming with other diseases, critics say. We can't be taking lightly this, what is wrong with me tonight? This extermination technology, Pearl says. We need to slow down. We need to hit the pause button on gene drives. Some activists in Africa agree. Okay, so I want to show you this thing from Africa. In July 2021, so this is all in the same time frame, the National Biosafety Agency of Burkina Faso authorized Target Malaria, a project that fights against malaria, to import transgenic mosquito eggs. A first release took place in 2019 in the locality of Bana. The article intends to show the numerous regulatory irregularities of the project's first phase. Okay, so they based releasing these things in Florida on this study done by Target Malaria in Africa. The numerous irregularities of the project's first phase. The first phase of the Target Malaria Project experimentation involved sterile male transgenic mosquitoes. This phase included the following activities: importation, studies in a confined environment, release of several thousand mosquitoes in 2019, and monitoring of this release. It is characterized by a series of regulatory and ethical irregularities. Of course it is. An absence of the independent risk assessment before importation and before release. So they imported them and released them without doing any independent risk assessment. An absence of the community's informed consent. An absence of the public involvement in the decision-making process regarding the importation and release. A sham of a risk assessment of the 2019 release. The genetic construct concerned by the strain of the first phase of Target Malaria Project, called ACDSM2, was created in 2008 in a lab. A member of the Target Malaria Project, Andrea Crisanti is at Imperial College London. She's a member of the project. The genetic modification is composed of several sequences, a nuclease gene, which induces sterility in male mosquitoes. This transgenic modification is transmitted according to the classic rules of heredity to half of the descendants. It is not a gene drive that is transmitted hegemonically to all the descendants. So then you've got the ACDSM2 transgenic construct was created synthetically based in sequence data, blah, 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 blah. This means that it has never been part of a living organism, and its expressions are unknown. Okay? According to Target Malaria, only one specific sequence of this construction is found on the X chromosome of the Anopheles gambiae species. This means for Target Malaria that there is no other gene apart from the one on the X chromosome that may be altered by the action of the endonuclease in question. Does this theory presented by Target Malaria withstand closer analysis? Here are some elements that question this assertion. The risk of the genetic construct transfer to local population and to other mosquito species is possible. Firstly, so it's only supposed to be within this certain population, but they're saying it's possible that it goes further than that. Firstly, the population released in 2019 contained as well, this is so badly written, unfortunately, a small number of genetically modified female mosquitoes, estimated by Target Malaria at less than 0.5%. This is an estimate based on modeling. Modeling is how we got locked down and told millions of us were all going to die with COVID. So they modeled it and they're like, yeah, the genetic mutation or modification will get into some of the female mosquitoes, but just a teeny bit. Mm-hmm. Secondly, the recapture rate of genetically modified mosquitoes during the monitoring was particularly low, between 0.3 and 1.7%. The low recapture rate creates a spread of the genetically modified mosquitoes spreading out of the trial site area, because mosquitoes do what? They fly. That's right. Winds blow them around. These people are idiots. This event that can be favored by the winds. And thirdly, the Target Malaria notes that there is a risk that the IPPOI gene may be lost or silenced, and the strain will revert to being fertile again. I mean, what could go wrong, right? Jigsaw. All of a sudden, they can define male versus female. I know, right? That was good. Because of a statistical phenomenon called sampling error, some individuals in the Anopheles gambiae wide habitat area may have the specific recognition site for the IPPOI gene. Genome sites other than that identified by the preliminary studies, or these sites may arise as a result of mutations or recombinations. In this case, the transfer, I'm just waiting for bats to start eating these mosquitoes, and then what, right? It can cause an alteration of genes. Absence of independent risk assessment. Burkina Faso's biosafety law requires that no decision to import, to use in a confined environment, to release, or to market a genetically modified organism may be taken by the National Biosafety Agency without prior assessment of the risks to human and animal health to biological diversity, and to environment and the resulting socioeconomic consequences. The risk assessment, which enabled the ANB to deliver to Target Malaria an authorization for the release of genetically modified mosquitoes, was carried out by the Commonwealth Science and Industrial Research Organization in Australia. Burkina Faso's biosafety law also stipulates that any natural or legal person having any direct interest whatsoever in the work of genetically modified organisms should not participate in the assessment of the risks related to these modified organisms. The CSIRO report is not an independent assessment, as this organization participates in the Safe Genes Gene Drive project, funded by who? DARPA, of course. I'm surprised it took us this many paragraphs to get to DARPA. Are they not in every single thing that's awful? Ay vey. The CSIRO report lacks empirical data. Its methodology is based primarily on assumptions and expert opinions. For example, the CSIRO calculates the probability of failure of the genetic construct to sterilize male individuals of the GM strain on the basis of the assumption that the effectiveness of the construct in the field will be the same as it is under laboratory conditions. That never happens. And they went ahead with it without testing it. Leach point out that technological solutions frequently fail to work and create further problems because they are often modeled in labs or on computers, methodologies which do not reflect the complexity of real-world situations. Kind of like saying masks work because you tested it in a lab. The CSIRO itself admits the possibility that its calculations are incorrect, saying, "The possibility that the risk models and calculations are incorrect justifies the monitoring of the strain after field release." So the fact that our models and calculations might be wrong means we really should keep a good eye on it after we release it into the community. This is science. This is what we do now. We just move right to testing in the community with people. That soup with mosquito broth. Yep, side of Australian malaria. Throw in some dengue, some Zika, and we're good to go. Absence of fully informed consent. Could there be any doubt? Target Malaria obtained the signature of the Bana Village Community Acceptance Form from people who do not understand anything about the project and who do not realize the issues of their signature. The Community Acceptance Form was a 4-page document composed of 2 sections. Uh-oh. I plugged my battery in. Hold on. Ah, don't die. Hold on. I get it. I got it. Sorry, guys. The Community Acceptance Form was a 4-page document composed of 2 sections, an information sheet and a signature sheet. The signature sheet was signed by the village and project representatives. 4 representatives whose legitimacy had been confirmed during the process signed on behalf of the village. The chief, a counselor, and 2 members of the VCD Bureau, a member of the project team who worked directly in the village, also signed the form. So somebody who's involved in the project signs off on the villagers' consent of this. Target Malaria claims to have organized numerous information meetings about the project and that the 130 households of Bana were involved. Yeah, I bet they were. However, one Bana resident said that most of the project activities took place in the center of the village, and as she lived farther away, she was not involved. The journalist's investigations show that, despite the signing of the community acceptance form, the Bana residents did not know much about the project, and some of them expressed concerns about it. If I'm not able to understand, I cannot give my consent because I do not know what damage will be caused by these mosquitoes. In any case, anyway, it scares me because I don't know what's going to happen. They have gone to make sterile mosquitoes, but what will happen as a result? I really don't understand. The Bana resident said that the project representatives did not talk about risks and only explained the first stage of the experiment. Much like COVID shots, you weren't allowed to tell anybody about the risks. The release of sterile mosquitoes, without informing on the last stage of the project, the most controversial gene drive. So they were like, we're going to release some sterile mosquitoes. It'll make other mosquitoes sterile. and it'll stop these little larvae from hatching out, and then boom, no mosquitoes, no malaria. They didn't tell them they were doing gene alteration. The project creates a financial interest for the village young people by giving them small jobs, listen to this, of mosquito catcher on their own bodies. What the hell? They are called volunteers with a payment of CFA franc 400 per hour, a significant sum for young people affected by poverty and unemployment. See how easy it would get these people to agree to consent? Because you're going to give them way more than they could make otherwise. In a rural environment where the monthly peasant income is around CFA franc 30,000, so around $45, 45 francs, I guess. I don't know. But they're going to give them 400 per hour, which is a bunch more. The volunteers, by working for several nights as mosquito collector, pulling the mosquitoes off your body, can earn a few thousand CFA francs. Since the release of genetically modified mosquitoes in July 2019, the volunteers are exposed to the risks of bites from genetically modified female mosquitoes. Only female mosquitoes bite and transmit disease, and from their descendants, but they are not informed of this risk by target malaria. There is very little information on the position of the Bana inhabitants regarding the experiment carried out in their village. This is what we do all the time. Big pharma, these companies, they do all of their scientific, for all of this institutional racism. This is where the institutional racism is. It's not me and you, it's the damn government. It's big pharma. Look at what they are doing over and over and over again to poor brown people in other countries. I am so sick of it. And our government, DARPA's right there funding it. And I'm going to give you a little a preview. And so is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Of course they are. They're involved in everything that goes wrong in Africa. One Bana resident, there's very little information on the position of the Bana inhabitants regarding the experiment carried out in their village. Very few journalists were able to meet the inhabitants of the village center, the interviews being blocked by the hostility of the villagers afraid of losing their jobs. One Bana resident said, "If you see that people are reluctant to do interviews, it could be because they are afraid to losing the little benefit they get from the project." The inhabitants of Naso, a village located 5 kilometers from Bana, and which was not involved by Target Malaria Project, told journalists that they were opposed to the project and that they fear negative fallout. They said they feared being affected by the release of mosquitoes in Bana, despite the reassuring words of Target Malaria, since there's a significant movement of people between the two villages as they are located very close together. But these people don't get any right to consent or to deny consent. The authorization of the 2019 release was given by the ministerial decree based on public consultation report as a decisive factor. But what report are we talking about? Indeed, no consultation as defined by Burkinabe legislation was conducted. So they're violating the laws of the area. None of these mechanisms for public participation in decision-making process has been implemented by the ANB, and this absence of consultation has been documented and denounced by the Burkinabe civil society. Okay, so now the media gets involved, right? As they always do, because they're so flippin' helpful with this stuff. Is anyone else thinking Jurassic Park? Yes. Oh, the mosquito is a bad bug. Yes, the mosquito is a very bad bug. Now, let's look at the media's latest assault on Americans via fact check, and this will be an article by Angela Fichera. Claim, rare malaria cases reported in Florida and Texas recently were caused by a disease control initiative backed by Bill Gates that involved releasing genetically modified mosquitoes. So the AP is going to assess this claim. False. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation doesn't finance any modified mosquito release projects in the U.S., and experts say the types of mosquitoes that are used for that initiative in Florida are not capable of transmitting malaria. The facts. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention announced this week that the U.S. has seen 5 cases of malaria. We already talked about that. On social media, Where false claims and conspiracy theories targeting Gates abound, some users quickly suggested that Gates backed work involving mosquitoes was somehow responsible. One tweet reads, "Malaria has been detected in Florida and Texas, conveniently two states where Bill Gates was experimenting with GMO mosquitoes." Join the dots. Bill Gates' funded company, Oxitec, released billions of mosquitoes in Florida and Texas, another tweet reads, suggesting a conspiracy is afoot to push a vaccine. Malaria is now in Florida and Texas for the first time in 20 years. But that theory twists the facts in more ways than one. Yeah, I'm guessing that theory is doing the fact twisting. First of all, while the Gates Foundation has provided funding and support to combat malaria, it has not funded any work involving mosquito release in the U.S., a spokesman said. And I'm going to show you some stuff. Oxitec, which is releasing, the foundation has indeed supported biotech company Oxitec, which is releasing modified mosquitoes in Florida. Didn't they just say that he hadn't donated to that or supported that? As part of a disease control initiative, though a spokesman for the company said its U.S. work is not funded by the Gates Foundation. Here's look at this. This stuff makes me insane. Where'd it go? I said, then how do they explain this? The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, committed grants, Oxitec, preparatory scoping for phase 2 field trials of these Anopheles mosquitoes, Division Global Health, correct committed amount $1,614,272. Region served, Africa and America. Grants topic, malaria. That sure looks like a grant that's going to involve the United States and Africa to me. Does it to you guys? I mean, maybe I'm not understanding it. I'm thinking there are monkeys involved here also. These people are insane. Okay, so we go past this. They're talking about Zika and all kinds of other stuff. Oh, son of a gun. Quit that. Okay, and shoot, I didn't pull that other article. So the thing about this is they've just approved a malaria vaccine. Of course they have. I think I've got it in here. Hold on. Oh, I don't think I can open another thing. Okay, so they've approved this malaria vaccine and they have sent it to, they've sent all these doses. They did this testing in where can you guys think of a continent where they would have tested the malaria? Africa, of course, Africa, yes, because, institutional racism. They tested it and they found that the girls were very, if somebody was going to be affected badly, it was more likely to be girls. They were getting encephalitis and all kinds of other issues. But, somehow they're like, oh, that wasn't related to the vaccine, just like they did with COVID. They dropped 200 and some COVID cases from the COVID vaccine group. And they were like, oh, no, this is just side effects. This isn't COVID. It's just a side effect. And they dropped those out so that they could meet their efficacy guidelines. Well, they're doing the same thing with the malaria vaccine, and it's causing fallout for the people in Africa. And I think they just sent like 18,000 doses or something like that over to Africa. And I guarantee you what they're doing is they're getting ready to, do this big field trial on these in the community, give all these kids these malaria vaccines, then tell us it's safe, then tell people in Texas and Florida that they need to get this malaria vaccine. I mean, it's just, we've seen it so much now, it's pretty easy to predict. Okay. While the local spread of malaria reported in Florida and Texas is rare, it's not unprecedented. It's not unprecedented. You guys saw that little chart that I showed you. Cases going down, 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 mosquitoes released, boom. But it had nothing to do with mosquitoes. Okay, the truth seems shrouded in double talk, as per usual, so let's move on to possible solutions. Who asked me about methylene blue? Here it is. Blue dye kills malaria parasites. It's hard to imagine that a blue dye sold in pet food stores, this is not the blue dye that you want to take. You want USP grade methylene blue. You can get it on Amazon. You do not want to take it if you are on antidepressants known as SSRIs, because it can cause problems for you. So don't do it. And I wouldn't if I live in Kentucky. I'm not going to take it for that. Dad got malaria as a kid and could not give blood. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Jigsaw says at this point, whatever the CDC recommends, do the opposite. Tennessee woman, yep, another mandate. And they'll say that you have to get it because if you don't get the vaccine and you get bitten by a mosquito that's transmitting malaria, then if another mosquito bites you, because you can't transmit it to each other, but if another mosquito bites you, then it can give it to someone else. Therefore, now you have to get vaccinated to protect other people, right? And we just come out of that. A study published this week in the Lancet Infectious Diseases showed that might be possible. Researchers added doses of the wow, a go-to malaria drug, added it to a go-to malaria drug. Oh, it's artemisinin aluminum. I don't know how you say it. A go-to malaria drug, and found that the dye killed the parasites that spread malaria within 2 days in the body. If a mosquito were to bite a person recovering from malaria, the mosquito couldn't pick up live parasites and spread it to the next human. That's good news. By contrast, after a week, people who got the malaria drug without methylene blue continued to pass the parasite to mosquitoes. Actually, the use of the dye to fight malaria is not quite as odd as it sounds. The blue dye in question, called methylene blue, is the oldest synthetic anti-malarial drug. A paper published in 1891 tells how two scientists successfully used it. Do you guys remember when COVID first came out? There were these two young male doctors, and they were saying that this respiratory syndrome that they were seeing with COVID looked a lot like altitude sickness. And they thought that methylene blue could change the whole course of things. And they immediately shut these guys down, deplatformed them. I think they got in trouble with their licenses, the whole thing. And then we find here, and it was sound. Their reasoning was sound because it worked for malaria, and we know that drugs that worked for malaria worked for COVID. It's just, as it unravels more and more, I just get madder and madder. But there was a catch. The treatment being followed by an intense blue coloring of the urine and the feces becoming blue on exposure to light it is not very likely that methylene blue will be much used outside of hospitals, reads an 1892 publication. If you can keep from getting malaria or transmitting it, do you care if I've taken this. It gives you the most beautiful blue pee you've ever seen. I've not noticed it changing the color of poop, but the pee is gorgeous. I've given it to Don to help his blood pressure. I'm just like, I think if you said to people, you can take a mRNA vaccine, or you can take this stuff that's been used since the 1800s, and it's going to turn your pee blue, while you're taking it. And you told people, but it doesn't cause any damage to your kidneys. In fact, it's neuroprotective if you've got Parkinson's or MS or dementia. It helps heal the mitochondria of the cells, which improves diabetes and hypertension. It repairs the mitochondria of the cells, which is very useful for cancer. People would be like, yeah, man, hit me up. I'd love to have some blue pee. I mean, they put the blue thing out there like this matters. I'm like, it's a color. What the heck? How does methylene blue help blood pressure? So you have endothelial lining. Your blood vessels, say this is your blood vessel. In your blood vessel, you have this certain kind of tissue called endothelium. So there's an endothelial lining. And the cells in the endothelial lining, the methylene blue goes in and repairs those cells. So if I had high blood pressure, like I'm giving Don methylene blue, I'm giving him other things too, Lugol's iodine, vitamin K2. Vitamin K2 gets the calcium that hardens the endothelial lining, gets it out of there. So that softens the vessel again, so it's not so stiff and it's easier to stretch and relax as your heart pumps the blood through. And then the methylene blue heals that endothelial lining. Now, if you're going to take it for blood pressure, make sure you're not taking an antidepressant. Make sure that you read up on it. There's a book. Just go to Amazon, because I'm not giving medical advice. I'm not going to tell you how to take it or anything like that. Get the book. Just look up methylene blue book on Amazon. There's only one that I've ever seen. And it's got like how to dose it and everything. And if you're going to take it for blood pressure, just monitor your blood pressure. Again, this isn't medical advice. I'm just telling you what the things we're trying for Don. And we've had really good results. We've got his blood pressure was running 210 over like 108. That is a hypertensive crisis. He would not go to the ER, and I can't blame him. And so we started with magnesium. We've added beetroot powder. Beetroot powder also causes vasodilation, so it relaxes the vessels so that you don't have such high blood pressure. Vitamin K2 to get that calcium out of there, and then methylene blue to repair the endothelial lining. And it's going really well. We've been able to keep them around 160 systolically, which is still elevated, but we're getting more occasions of lower numbers, like 135. And we've only been at this like a month. So I feel like we're having some really good results, and we'll keep up with it. Oh, I was given it for interstitial cystitis. Worked wonderfully. It is incredible. Ladies, if you have honeymoon cystitis, which is what they used to call a urinary tract infection that you get as a result of intercourse. So, they'll tell you, well, pee after. Well, a lot of us have tried that and still get UTIs. So they'll put you on like a maintenance dose of antibiotics. Well, rather than doing that, I just take 40 drops of methylene blue and put it into a veggie cap, and take it orally, because otherwise it stains your mouth. Take it orally before you have intercourse, and then there will be no opportunity for bacteria to build up in the bladder. Also good if you have chronic UTIs. Just it's great. It works really, really well. So anyway, yeah, they're like, oh, because it turns the pee blue, people won't want to take it. And I'm like, I think you're wrong about that. Okay. Dye kills malaria parasites at a speed not seen before, which we talked about, that it was within 2 days, the parasites were dead in the body and could not be transmitted to another mosquito. But I guarantee you what they're going to push is a dangerous, untested vaccine that's already shown problems. Blood clot is the worst pain ever. I had a port a long time ago for drugs that I was getting for rheumatoid arthritis, and that port got a clot in it, and I ended up with clots. I ended up with pulmonary embolisms, and I can tell you that is the worst chest pain I've ever had. I worked a 12-hour shift with 4 pulmonary embolisms because I just started the job. I had 104 fever, and they told me if I left that I wouldn't be able to come back because it was during my probationary period on that job. And so I did the shift, wore a mask, went to the ER after, and was admitted for 4 PEs. And so this hospital that I was working for just rented a floor of the hospital. It was a step-down unit. But I went to the main hospital, which was a different hospital, part of UK, when I got so sick, was admitted to the ICU in critical condition, was told to get my affairs in order because I was not going to survive it, ended up with sepsis and a heart infection. It was an absolute nightmare, but here I am. You can't kill this old girl. But I remember the pain. I was having really bad shoulder pain. And I went to one of the PTs and said, hey, something is wrong. My shoulder is killing me. And she noticed my breathing was off. And I am very lucky to be alive. She noticed my breathing was off, checked my stats, and they were in the 70s. I mean, I'd worked a 12-hour shift like that. And she said, I don't think you've pulled a muscle. Something's going on with your lungs. You need to go down to the ER. And I did. And I mean, it was bad. I was gray when they admitted me to the ICU. Leg pain, couldn't walk. Oh, yeah. I had a patient one time. I was taking care of his wife on home health. And I went to his work to see him because I needed to run by a glucose monitor for her and show him how to use it because she had dementia. And I get there and he keeps rubbing the inside of his thigh just above his knee. And I said, what's up with your leg there, buddy? And he pulls his pants up and he's got this red spot that's hot and inflamed. And I said, look, I'm not a doctor, but that looks like a blood clot to me. You got to get to the ER right away. And he just gets up and he walks out of the room. And I'm thinking he's calling somebody to take him. Well, he never comes back. I sit there for like 40 minutes. And I finally come out and I said to the secretary, I said, I was talking to, I can't think of his name. Is he coming back? And she said, oh, honey, he got in his truck and he left. Well, they life flighted him out of the town that we were living in, Berea, to Lexington. And then I didn't hear what happened to him. So one day I get a admit sheet for a new patient. And they're like, we're going to give you this patient because you've seen his wife. And it's him. And so I get out there to see him, and they had, given him, they'd put a Greenfield filter in his leg and given him a bunch of drugs to help, break up the clot. And the filter keeps as the clot's breaking up, it keeps the little clots from showering to the lungs and the brain. But yeah, I mean, he's like, you saved my life. He said, you said that. I got in my truck. I drove straight to the hospital. They put me on a helicopter, and I was up at, I can't remember what hospital he was in. But yeah, I mean, just grace of God that I was there, and that he showed it to me that it was hurting him in the moment. But he'd worked all day, and that blood clot had started in his calf and worked all the way up to the, almost middle of his thigh. Crazy, crazy. This is more on blue urine. Why is this doing this? Why are you that color? Quit that. Okay. Oh, this is the one I wanted to tell you guys. Wait, make sure you don't have any questions. Heat rash. They'll create a heat rash pandemic here, right? You guys are so funny. Yep, a port clot. Yep. Oh, thank you, Jigsaw. I'm trying to keep an eye over here on YouTube and Facebook. Okay, so this radioactive material was reported missing near southern U.S. border. Did any of you hear anything about this? I just stumbled on it, and I try to look for stuff that everybody else isn't covering, because I know a lot of you watch a lot of the different folks on Rumble, and it gets to where everybody's just talking about the same story. So I try to find some different stuff for you. But this one caught my eye, of course. Not a thing. Yeah, me neither. U.S. officials remained silent while Mexican officials issued alerts. I'm just so over the way this country is being run. A container of iridium-192 reportedly went missing in the southern border state of New Mexico, prompting Mexican officials to issue a warning and speak out to a local news station in El Paso. While concern was raised south of the U.S. border, American officials remained silent. Of course they did. Of course they did. I mean, it's just some radiation. We'll talk about that. Now, questions remain. Sorry, guys, I am all stuffed up tonight. My throat's itchy or sore. I don't know what's. I got to get up there and take some methylene blue. I need some blue pea to get me through it. The U.S. nuclear, that makes Don crazy. When people say nuclear, the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission radioactive equipment disappeared in southern New Mexico, according to Mexico's federal government. ICR further reported, the missing equipment is described as a container with iridium, if I'm not saying that right, guys, let me know, iridium-192, which is used for medical treatments and also in the oil industry, according to the commission. The missing equipment is described as a container with iridium-192, which is used for medical. Didn't I just say that? Although it is now reported the materials were recovered, a cursory overview of news reports on Google suggests iridium-192 goes missing all the time. It's no big deal. Okay, so then I pulled this because I'm like, well, we should look up iridium-192 because that sounds scary. So news and terrorism. I don't know why this isn't letting me just go up a little. It's advancing the whole page. Communicating in a crisis. This is a fact sheet from the federal government. Radiological attacks, dirty bombs, and other devices. A radiological attack is the spreading of radioactive material with the intent to do harm. Radioactive materials are used every day in labs, medical centers, food irradiation plants, and for industrial uses. If stolen or otherwise acquired, many of these materials could be used in a radiological dispersal device. A dirty bomb is one type of RDD that uses a conventional explosion to disperse radioactive material over a targeted area. The term dirty bomb and RDD are often used interchangeably in technical literature. However, RDDs could also include other means of dispersal, such as placing a container of radioactive material in a public place, or using an airplane to disperse powdered or aerosolized forms of radioactive material. That's no big deal, right? Don't worry about it. It's just a dirty bomb. A dirty bomb's not a nuclear bomb. It talked about how it would be used. I want to draw your attention to this over here. So you've got gamma radiation. Did it tell us which one this one is? When radioactive elements decay, they produce energetic emissions, alpha particles, beta particles, or gamma rays. That can cause chemical changes in tissues. The average person in the US receives a background dose of about 1/3 of a rem per year, about 80% from natural sources, including earth materials, cosmic radiation, and the remaining 20% from man-made radiation sources, such as medical X-rays. There's different types of radioactive material that emit different kinds. So gamma and X-rays can travel long distances in air and can pass through the body, exposing internal organs. It's also a concern if gamma emitting material is ingested or inhaled. Then you've got beta and alpha. I think this one was, did it say it was gamma? Let me click down. I think it might be the next page. Here we go. Okay. Iridium 192 is gamma, a gamma emitter. Industrial radiography, medical implants for cancer therapy. Most dirty bombs and other RDDs would have very localized effects ranging from less than a city block to several square miles. The area over which radioactive materials would be dispersed depends on factors such as amount, type of radioactive material, means of dispersal, explosion, spraying, fire, physical and chemical form of the radioactive material. For example, if the material is dispersed as fine particles, it might be carried by the wind over relatively large areas. Local topography, location of buildings, other landscapes, and local weather condition. And then they talk about radioactive plumes and immediate impact to human health. Most injuries from a dirty bomb would probably occur from the heat, debris, radiological dust, and force of the conventional explosion used to disperse the radioactive material, affecting only individuals close to the site of the explosion. At low radiation levels, the effects would be minimal, and then the more radiation you get, the worse it is. So my question, I have a couple questions. Good night, PJ. My question is, why is this going missing all the time? And they've said they found it, but did they? I mean, they say a lot of things. And if it goes missing all the time, how much is missing and has it been found? And why does it go missing all the time? Like, where is it going? Shouldn't we be monitoring this a little bit more closely? I mean, there are words I can't type on YouTube because they are so closely monitored. Hold on, I got to double this blanket. I am free. I think he turned it down. Oh my gosh, it's cold in here. We need a whole blanket. I want to know where this is going. I don't trust the government. The fact that the Mexican government came out and said, hey, there's some iridium 192 floating around. You know, if you see a canister, don't pick it up. Like, where is it? It's like the train. Did you guys see the train that had ammonium? Was it ammonium nitrate? Is that the fertilizer? Pellets of ammonium nitrate or something. It was going from one place. When it got to the next place, all of it was gone. And they're like, oh, it probably just spilled out along the way. It's no big deal. It's ammonium nitrate. It's what they blew up the Oklahoma Federal building with. A whole train car of it was missing. They're like, oh, there was a loose latch. Yeah, it just spilled out along. Are you sure it just spilled out along the way? Because I'm not sure. You don't have any proof that it just spilled out along the way. Maybe that latch was loose because somebody got all of it out of there. What the heck? And now we can't keep track of our radioactive material. I'm gradually losing more and more faith in our government, and I didn't have much left. I mean, these are the basic, like, why is Pete Buttigieg, however you say his name, why is he not all over figuring out how ammonium nitrate being transported by train is lost? Like that story, there's just no answer. Well, it's like the FTX Sam Bankman-Fried thing. We're never going to get any answers on that. They have memory hold it, and I'm like, what, Pete? What is it that you what is it? What would you say you do here, Pete? Because you're not being productive in any way with getting the airport straightened out, stopping near collisions of airplanes. I keep hearing about this whole green thing, and they're going to be doing They've allocated all this money to update the grids and all. None of this work has been started. We're 2 years in. 2, 3? Are we 3 years in? 3 years in. Um, this money's all been allocated. Where's the work? Are you guys seeing any of this? Are you seeing construction of electrical grids? Are you seeing any? Do you know about it? And maybe I just don't. Maybe I need to Google it and see where all this work is going on. Because maybe they don't announce it. It's quite likely that I could just be ignorant that it's going on. But I don't know what Pete's doing because I don't see, him working on this whole issue with the missing ammonium nitrate. And I think that's kind of important. And we've got trains derailing every week. I'm not even exaggerating. Sometimes more than one in a week. No answers. They're like, oh, it's all Trump's fault because he canceled these brakes on. You've been in office 3 years. If it's all Trump's fault, you could have fixed it for the last 3 years. So it can't all be Trump's fault anymore. This is your administration, President Biden. You need to fire Pete because Pete just walks around looking cute. He doesn't do anything that I can tell. I mean, he's not even good with the customers. I don't know what you can say good about Pete, but it's making me, maybe because who's the guy that steals the luggage? The bald guy that's in charge of our spent nuclear waste? What is his name? It's Sam something, isn't it? Sam Brent, Sam. Oh my gosh, that's maddening. CSX train manifest. I thought they found a leak in the train. Well, that's what they say. I mean, was it a leak in the train car, or did they find it from here to there? They're just speculating. They're like, oh yeah, there was a leak in the train. Was there a leak, or did somebody punch a hole in it and collect it? I don't know. Was there ammonium nitrate all along I mean, maybe it gets absorbed. I don't know. Maybe it's like Obama said, the jobs weren't as shovel ready as he thought. Yeah. Okay, wait. Who's the luggage stealer? Is it Sam Brinton? Luggage thief. Biden. Yeah, Sam Brinton. Yeah, I'm super curious. Yeah, thanks. Now that Sam Brinton is gone, yeah, he's fired. Who's handling our spent nuclear waste? Have you heard anybody has been put into that job, or is that just, we don't need to fill that position? I mean, granted, Sam wasn't doing anything when he was there besides the weird stuff that Sam seems to do everywhere he goes. Oh my gosh, you guys, pray for me. I'm coming down with something. I can feel it. What the heck? I blame Abby. Okay, so the state legislature in California is planning to eliminate child support for Black residents. I'm in charge? No, you don't want me in charge of spent nuclear waste. You really don't. State legislature to eliminate child support debt for Black residents. Who does this hurt? And they've not been real specific about it. Here, let's read here. This is by Jim Hoff, so this is Gateway Pundit. The controversial California Reparations Task Force has recently made a bold appeal to the state's Democratic-led legislature, demanding the abolition of child support debt exclusively for the state's Black residents. I could see for the state's poor residents, but just to excuse the debt based on your color is crazy. The task, and wouldn't that be reparations? Like, I mean, like the people who are beating in the windows of stores and stealing the stuff. I feel like they've gotten their reparations. If reparations are due, they are not eligible because you've looted and stolen and burned. And, the lady who embezzled the money from BLM and the other people who did that, they've got their reparations. They're out. At least we should be able to agree on that. The task force argues this move is a necessary countermeasure to the oppressive national laws that, in their view, have stunted the growth of the African American community and fractured their families. I would say that the welfare system has fractured their families because you made it okay for dads to leave. Dads didn't leave before because they didn't want their kids to starve. But when, and this is poor people as a rule, this isn't just black people. So now that you know that the government will support your kids, because for years they didn't even try to go after them for child support, then there's really no reason for you to stay. So you can leave, the government will support your kids. And people would like get divorced and still live in the same house just so that they could get welfare. I mean, I know of people who've done that. In an extensive 1,100-page report, do these people do any real work? The task force presented calculations that could translate into potentially hundreds of billions of dollars in payouts. As alarming as the statistics may seem about the demographic distribution of child support debt and the fact that the Black Californians bear a disproportionately large percentage of it, well, why do you bear a disproportionate? It's not like institutional racism that you bear a disproportionately large amount of the child support debt. It's that you're not paying your child support, right? I mean, I can't think of any. It's not because you're black. It's because you're not paying your child support. There are glaring issues with this proposed solution. Oh gosh, I've pissed y'all off now. I want my money. Absolutely. Welfare destroyed the family. Lady Jacks. Oh, please. It's natural. It's natural attacks. It's a financial response. It's not a tax. Yeah. It's a financial responsibility, whether you're black, white, or purple. Take care of your kids. Exactly. And now if you're going to forgive that debt, like, I mean, I have heard people and they're like, oh yeah, I got 14 baby mamas. If you're going to forgive that debt, how many more kids is this person going to have or create? This is just stupid. Isn't child support for the spouse that is left with the kids? So wouldn't the one left with the kids get screwed? Oh, well, we'll go further into that. But yeah, I can't quite, unless it really gets into it here, but I can't quite figure out if it means you won't have to pay the back stuff that you owed to that person, which would screw the kids and the mom, or if it's amount. So if the family's on welfare, then the state keeps the welfare, keeps the child support, because you have to pay the state back because they're paying for your kids. So if you get child support of $700 a month and you get welfare of $700 a month, the state goes after the non-custodial parent, gets the child support, and the state keeps it to reimburse them for the welfare they're paying to the mother and the child. Or they give the mother and the child the $700 and then you don't get welfare anymore. Yes, if a man doesn't care for his children, the Bible calls him an infidel. Yes. Hunter's a deadbeat dad in chief. Definitely not a black thing. Yeah, well, I mean, he's paying his child support. I think it's ridiculous that it was $20,000 a month. It doesn't take $20,000 to raise any kid. But, you know, karma, I guess. Okay. The task force boldly claims that the so-called discriminatory laws have torn African American families apart and caused damage due to the disproportionate amount of African Americans burdened with child support debt. They also assert, this is just such backwards thinking. They also assert that the state's policy of charging a 10% interest on overdue child support, but the state is the one having to collect it, so you should have to pay interest on it. Places significant barriers to the African American community's ability to pursue further education, secure employment, maintain housing, and attend job training. So you're telling me if they forgive this debt, that this person who owes the debt is now going to be like, oh, thank God I don't have to pay that child support back, because now I can go to college and get a good job and get housing and be a good parent. No, that is absolutely not what's going to happen. What else? Barriers to the community's ability to pursue further education. And if you doesn't forgiving the arrears, the money that the person's behind, wouldn't that make it less likely that those kids would be able to pursue further education, secure employment, maintain housing, attend job training? This is absolute insanity. However, a critical question arises from these claims. Isn't child support intended to secure the welfare of children? Discharging this debt will ultimately disadvantage the children, the innocent victims who were supposed to benefit from these payments. Therefore, to frame the issue as solely a racially discriminatory system seems to conveniently overlook the broader implications of such a recommendation. The report cited a 2003 California Department of Child Support Services study that estimated 27% of owed child support in the state was unpaid interest, that those who owed child support had lower incomes than the typical California worker, and that such do they have lower incomes? Part of it is lower incomes, I'm sure. Part of it is many kids that you can't afford, but who still need to be supported. Um, and that such interest requires a larger portion of their income to actually pay the debt. Then pay your child support. You won't get in debt. You won't owe interest. Maybe educate, maybe make people go through a class when they have a kid. Now if you guys aren't together, you have to go through this class to educate you on the fact that you're going to have to pay child support. And if you get behind it, they're going to charge interest. It breaks families apart. Isn't that why they're having to pay child support? Well, they're saying that racist policies cause the breakdown of the family. And I would agree, racist policies like welfare cause the breakdown of the family. Racist policies that made it more financially advantageous for the parents to split up so the mother could get medical coverage for the kid. I mean, though there needs to be some kind of safety net for healthcare for children, and there is. There's the CHIPS program, and now we've got programs to help pay for daycare. There are less and less excuses for not paying your child support and for not working. And it is based off your income. You're right, Lady Jack. She's pissed, man. We got her wound up. I love it. Great show. Thank you, Craxton Jackson. I appreciate the donation. The task force recommends that the legislature enact legislation to terminate all interest accrued on back child support, requiring only the payment of the principal owed. So if you've got $8,000 in interest and you owe $20,000 in child support, you'd only have to pay the $20,000. But that's not even true. I'll show you why. At a minimum, the proposed recommends that the legislature eliminate the prospective accrual of interest on child support debt for low-income parents. And I can understand. I think there should be some grace for, a parent gets behind, loses their job. The interest owed to the state shouldn't break their backs. But these are specific situations that have financial merit. You can look at those and make accommodations. But across the board makes no sense. The task force further recommends that the legislature amend Family Code sections 17560 that offers the offers in compromise provision. Oh yeah, we're going to talk about that. To allow for offers in compromise and forgiveness of child support debt based solely on a parent's financial circumstances and ability to pay. So they want that rewritten. The way it's written right now is that if you have a financial hardship, you can get some of those interest payments reduced. You still have to pay your current child support and keep that up. They won't reduce it all, but that's what the current code is. They're wanting to get rid of that altogether and forgive all of the interest. The report is a culmination of 2 years of research done by the task force into what it says is the historical discrimination faced by Black Californians and their ancestors in the state. It also offers a broad account of the ways it accuses the state of wrongdoing descendants of Black slaves. The California Reparations Task Force, formed in 2020, recently voted in favor of recommendations that could include payments of a minimum of $360,000 to each eligible Black resident in the state. So would that be on top of forgiving this child support interest? The project could cost the state upwards of $800 billion, more than 2.5 times its annual budget, according to the New York Post. This is the most backward solution to problems that I've ever seen. The cities, they're not enforcing the laws, which increases violence and crime. And their answer for that is, let's decriminalize shoplifting and looting and rioting, and petty larceny, violent crime that doesn't result in someone's death. I'm like, okay, well then what you get is more of all of that. But their numbers look better because those things aren't crimes anymore. According to the California Attorney General's website, Well, and the thing is if you do everything you can to eliminate and punish crime, you make the community safer, which makes it less, um, you have less gang crime and all violent crime, things like that, which makes it safer for people to go out and get a job, makes industry want to come to the area and bring jobs to the area, higher paying jobs that these people could get involved in and not have to resort to selling drugs to be able to get along. You see, they just created all these problems, and now they're proposing stupid solutions that are where is all this money coming from? Are any of you from California? I mean, it's a hot mess. It's filthy. At least Los Angeles is. I was there several years ago to do a talk, and I, I mean, we wanted to leave early. We thought we would extend the trip because it'd be so cool to go, and then we got there, and my teenage daughter was like, "Can we go home? This is just awful." Everything smelled like pee, and the homeless people were like aggressive and assaulting. They did not take no for an answer if they asked you for money. It just the viaducts are just homeless encampments. It was crazy, and that's been a long time ago. Um, an additional recommendation centers around taking away local decision making in real estate ordinances in the state. According to Fox News, California's Reparations Task Force is calling for the state legislature to require all cities and counties with allegedly segregated neighborhoods to submit all their real estate ordinance to a state agency for approval based on whether they maintain or lessen residential racial segregation. And part of this is, allowing multifamily housing in higher income neighborhoods, which is going to bring down the property value of those homeowners. And I would bet money that they're not going to reduce your property tax, even though your property value goes down. And so now you're just killing the middle class. Um, I said, guess what? They're already doing it. And why does it matter? The Child Support Debt Reduction Program. The debt reduction program provides eligible parents with past due child support payments the opportunity to reduce the amount they owe the government, so interest, or money that you owe the government because the government was paying welfare to whoever was taking care of the kids. So you owe that money to the government because they funded the raising of your kids while you weren't paying. So now you owe them the money, and now you can get out of it. Um, this debt, called arrears, is owed to the government if your dependent children received public assistance welfare or were in foster care while you were not paying court-ordered child support. Those programs are paid for by the state using taxpayer dollars, and federal and state law require that you reimburse the state for supporting your children during that time. If you qualify, you will be able to offer a compromise repayment to the state. In other words, you may offer to reduce the debt by paying an amount that is less than the full amount you owe. And this is based on your income. It will not reduce unpaid child support that is owed directly to the person receiving the support. You can only reduce the amount you owe the taxpayers. Why do anything, right? Why pay your child support? Why work? Why try to keep your house up? Why get educated? Why get a job if the government is going to incentivize drug use, homelessness, crime, not supporting your children? Why are we killing her? Aren't you starting to wonder, like, why am I walking the line? Why am I killing myself? Why am I, having to do a fundraiser to help my son pay for $4,000 in car repairs? Um, you know, where's my money? Where's my check? I raised 3 kids by myself with no child support. Very little. I mean, there was only a few years that it was paid. I think I'm owed $20,000 in arrears. I'll never see it. And in fact, I gave up. He was paying on the arrears. They were collecting it. And I asked them to stop because he had another child with the kid's stepmom. This is multiple women later. And I did not want that child to not be able to get child support as much as she needed because of arrears being paid to me. So I called the state and I'm like, just drop the arrears case. I don't want to collect the money. I want this money to go to this child because she's a minor, and I think a lot of her mom. who gets the back interest? The state. The interest goes to the state. The custodial parent doesn't get interest. So, Lady Jex, let me explain in case this has got confusing. So, what's happening is I've got kids, right? And the dad's not paying child support, and I'm getting welfare. So, I'm getting a check every month and food stamps and Medicaid and everything. And the state can go after the dad for that. So, when they go after the dad, they'll assess how much child support he owes and maybe more to pay back money that Medicaid paid out for medical care or food stamps or whatever, right? Um, and so they'll go after him for that, and then he pays the state. He's got to pay all of that back. Not all of that was paid to me, but all that they determined was owed in child support, medical, whatever, right? So they're saying you could get all of that forgiven, that whole amount you owed the state. So the state is now supporting my kids on the taxpayer dime, and the father doesn't have to pay for that. So you have that option, or you have the reduction of interest. So they're like two different things, but either way, they're making it so that you don't have to pay the taxpayer back. So screw you law-abiding taxpayers who are trying to work and support your kids and keep a roof over your heads. Big double-barreled middle finger to you, because we're going to give these people who won't fulfill their responsibilities your money. Congratulations. That's what you get for your hard work. You're just disincentivizing any effort on the part of decent people, because they're at some point you're going to be like, I'm done. I can't keep killing myself. If I quit my job, I can get free money. If I go on drugs, they'll send me the stuff they'll send me the paraphernalia I need to do the drugs. I can get me some clean needles. And I mean, this is just, it is governing backwards. It's creating all of these problems and then creating problematic solutions that make the problems worse. The whole thing's a hot mess. I saw that, Craxon Jackson. Is there a minimum a parent has to pay even at the moment of court proceedings and the one spouse does not have a job? Yes, if the spouse does not have a job, your child support is calculated based on minimum wage, whether you're getting paid minimum wage or not. That's the bottom line. So whatever the local minimum wage is, or is that federal? I don't know how that works. They would, even if you're unemployed, that's what your child support is based on. And then if you make more, they go back and they can, what is that called? Where you go back and revise it. It's called integrity, says Isaac's mom, and honoring God. And it breaks that curse, just like what you went through, Penny. Absolutely. Back interest goes to the state, depending. Yes. It's destroying mankind. Yes, it is. What is that word? It's dehumanizing. It's dehumanizing to go to work every day and have to step over people who have completely been given over to drug addiction and depravity and crime. It is demoralizing to people who are trying to do the right thing. It's demoralizing to people who go to high school. And let's just hit on this real quick. So I have an answer to this affirmative action problem. So all these colleges are complaining that affirmative action is going to go away, right? And I think since all of these colleges and the government care so much about people of color, that this solution should be adopted immediately. And I've offered to help Fauci out with some of the stupid research that he was having done for like $500. Like I wasn't even going to charge much. I think for this, my rate's going to go up a little bit, because this is totally forgot what I was talking about. Affirmative action. This is brilliant here. Okay, so my plan is that these colleges that were using affirmative action to let people in who otherwise would not have qualified, no matter what their race is. I think so. I'm assuming that this means that their SAT scores weren't high enough, like merit-based, they wouldn't be able to get in. But because they're of a particular race, they're like, we're going to give them a break because of our history. Okay, so now they've decided they're not going to do that. Well, since the colleges are so upset about this, and they're so invested in making sure people who are disadvantaged get a leg up, this is what I think they should do. Every college should be required to have a remediation program for students that they believe prospectively could bring up their grades, their SAT scores, if they had further education. So what they would be required to do is to provide 1 to 2 years of remediation for that student who would have qualified for affirmative action before but doesn't now. Bring that child up, that young person up, so that they can compete based on merit. This will cost these kids nothing. The college will eat it. They won't get any college credit for it. They can't get college loans for it. They shouldn't need loans um, because the college is going to do this for free because they care so much about these kids. Um, and because, acting based on race is so important. I would say acting based on disadvantage, sure. But we've got financial aid and things like that. So that's my idea. Every college is now required to provide a 1 to 2 year program, depending on what the student needs. You can't do 1 year. It has to be at least 1 year. And if the student is not up to snuff as far as admission, then you have to give them another year. And you'll give them classes, remediating them, getting them up to where their peers are so that they can compete based on merit. They won't pay for it. The college will eat it because they care so much. The government will require it because our tax dollars are going to the government and it helps fund these colleges. The students will be required to work. Every college student will be required to work while they're in college, even these students in the remediation program. The 2 years that the students work, the college will provide equal funds to the amount that they worked. So they'll use that money that they're working to to pay for food and dorms or whatever it is they need to pay for. So however much they earn working, the college will give that much to them to go toward their admission and their fees and whatever the cost of tuition costs them once they get out of remediation and get accepted to the college. That's a solution. That's something that requires something of the person and something of the institution and something of the government and something of the taxpayers. Let's get these kids up to snuff. Let's not charge them for it because they've already been disadvantaged enough. They have to go through this program. They have to maintain at least a C average. They have to work. There you go. Problem solved. Problem solved. I half wonder how many of these students would do it if they knew they had to work. And I think even kids that are going to college, that it's fully paid by the parents, should be required to work. Where my kids grew up, where we live here in Kentucky before I moved to Winchester, because they care so much. I know, I'm so tired of this. Yes, there's institutional racism, but that's not happening on our level, on the ground level, on the people level. It's happening at the institutional level, the government. They're doing it. They're telling you we're doing it, but we're not doing it. They're doing it. We lived in this little town called Berea here in Kentucky. It's about 40 minutes away. And they have Berea College there, which is a liberal arts college. Used to be a Christian college. I think they still say it is, but it's a hot mess. Just a great gender studies school. But they've got a good music program. They've got a good agriculture program. Lots of good trades programs and stuff. But it is a work-study college, so you have to work to go to college there. And the work pays for your college. And when you graduate from college, you used to get like a new computer. You have to have financial need to be able to go to the university at all. And I just think it's a great model. And there are other schools in the country that are work-based like that. So if you want to go to college and you don't want to, have to give your firstborn to pay the debt, there are these working colleges. Now, the merit to get into them is pretty high, as I understand it. But I mean, come on, you work, your college is paid for, period. Too simple. It'll never work with our Uncle Sam in control. I agree. They'll find some way to screw it up. I mean, that's what the government does best. Back interest goes to the state again. I can tell you about being white male and being discriminated. Affirmative action works both. Yeah, it does. Because if you're a white male who's worked hard to get a job and you've done everything you can to meet the qualifications and exceed them for the job, and then you lose out because of affirmative action, somebody gets hurt either way. And I'm trying to come up with a system that is solely merit-based. That way nobody gets hurt. these kids who don't qualify based on merit because their grades are too low or their SATs are too low or their essay's not good enough or whatever it is, the college can help them. Colleges already offer these remediation programs. You have to pay for them. You don't get college credit for them. But since they care so much and they're just outraged over these kids, not being able to get in, then this is how they can fix it. They're never part of the solution. They just bitch and they raise tuition and they make it so unaffordable, and you come out with a useless degree. I'm of the opinion that if you're going to college and you're getting financial aid for it, that you should not be able to go into a degree area that has no jobs. You just can't. So, if you want to get a 4-year degree in basket weaving and you want to pay for that, knock yourself out. But you don't get federal financial aid for that. To get federal financial aid, you need to go into an area of need. So you need to go into something that jobs are available in and that there's shortage of staff in. So, nursing, we have a nursing shortage again. I wonder why. We have a nursing shortage again. There are programs where you can go to nursing school and then you can go to work in a community that doesn't have enough nursing staff. And as you work year by year, usually over 5 years, the hospital will pay back your student loans. That's a great idea. That's how you increase people going into needed fields. I know doctors that work in rural areas, and their plan is to work in the rural area for 10 years so that their student debt's paid back, so they don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars of student debt. It is doable. Ask the college for the ROI. Yeah, exactly. What's the America Smart? What is the return of investment on this degree? And if you're getting financial aid and the ROI is not what it should be, then that's not a degree field you can go into. We're sorry. If you want to pay to become a basket weaver, knock yourself out. You should be able to be a basket weaver. But the federal government's not going to supplement the funding for that. The taxpayer's just not going to do it. The benefit to the taxpayer should be there. There's no benefit to the taxpayer like paying off these student loans or subsidizing these student loans when students are going into things that make them completely unemployable. Why should that be on me? It shouldn't. If the taxpayer is going to subsidize financial aid by it being done with low interest rates or slow repayment or whatever, then that's a contractual agreement in my mind. I'm willing to help out. I'm willing to let you use my tax dollars. In return, you'll go into a field that needs people. That is a win-win for everybody. And no, you're not going to be able to go and just do a gender studies degree. Get over it. You don't need a degree in gender studies. Every stupid thing you need to learn about gender studies, you can learn on TikTok for free. There you go. Problem solved. Look how much money I saved you today. You're welcome. Merit-based underwater basket weaving. You better be able to hold your dang breath. Anyway, yeah, that's right. The taxpayer gets to pay it. Now on to Big Pharma and their latest cover-up. These people are absolute monsters. My daughter's in nursing school right now. Good for her. Great career. I'd be praying for her because things have gotten really weird. Jigsaw says there's demand for underwater basket weaving over just yeah, I would think that it would be harder to fill an underwater basket weaving position than just a regular, sitting crisscross applesauce on the grass basket weaving. That makes sense. See there, look at you guys. We are the problem solvers of this generation. It's not the young people. It's us. It's us. We're bringing all the viable solutions. That's why I love you guys. All right. Now on to Big Pharma and their latest cover-up. This is from the Defender. Merck knew its popular asthma drug, and I am going to go in and I want to say something that I want to say I was wrong about. So I had talked about using this drug. It's called Singulair or Montelukast. I had talked about potentially using this drug for parents who are insisting on getting kids vaccinated, especially kids that are in that really high risk range for myocarditis. Like maybe your kid can't play sports unless you get this vaccine. I still wouldn't let my kid get it, but people make their own decisions. And I had talked about let's do a program that would calm mast cells and inflammation beforehand, because there's something called Conus syndrome. And Conus syndrome is caused by a drug. And it is so you know how you can have a reaction, like an anaphylactic reaction? So that's all in the airway and in the vasculature. So if you have an anaphylactic reaction, the airway swells, you have difficulty breathing, and you can go into anaphylactic shock, which means your circulatory system collapses, your blood pressure drops, and you can die. But there's also Conus syndrome, and that can be a reaction to a vaccine or a medication. And with Conus syndrome, I think it's Kounis, there's type 1 and type 2. Type 2, I think what happens is, if I remember correctly, the plaques in the heart, there'll be inflammation in the vessels in the heart, and the plaques, the hardened calcium in the heart, the inflammation causes those to break loose, and that can cause sudden cardiac death. The other type of Conus syndrome, I think, is type 1, and if I'm remembering right, so when young people under 30, they have the vessels that they were born with in the heart, right? As you get older and those vessels get narrower, the heart does something called mottling, and it spreads out and it starts forming new roads around that area that's not quite so open anymore. So if that person has a heart attack, they still have a chance of getting blood around to that area of the heart, not losing so much of the tissue. So a heart attack is basically the blood carries oxygen doesn't get to that area of the heart, and so the heart dies. That part of the muscle dies, and then it can't squeeze right anymore. In kids, when you have some kind of issue, they don't have those routes to go around. So if something happens and they get a blockage in the heart, then they die. And even if it opens back up, because it's been closed and blood is sitting on the other side of that closure, it clots. And when that vessel opens up, they throw the clot and they die. So type 2 is clots. Type 1 is caused because you give the person something, it's like a cardiac anaphylaxis kind of. And so you give the kid the COVID vaccine, right? They get out there and they're saying, well, it's myocarditis. Well, I keep wondering if for some of these people, it's not Conus syndrome, especially people who've just had the shot that have it. So what'll happen is they're out there, they're exerting themselves. They'll start having this allergic type reaction, especially in the people who drop dead right away. And the vessel in a young person squeezes down shut. It contracts down, and no blood can get through. And because they don't have any little roads built around there, they can't get any oxygen to that part of the heart, and they just drop dead. Sudden death is generally the reaction. So anyway, I had talked about if people were going to vaccinate their kids, maybe they should put them on quercetin, put them on Singulair, and do this for start them 2 weeks before the vaccine, continue for 30 days, and then start weaning them off these drugs. So quercetin, I can't remember what I had in that protocol. Quercetin, a regular over-the-counter antihistamine like Claritin or something like that to suppress histamine, because histamine causes this. Yeah, the vessels collapse. And Montelukast. And I thought that would be a good thing because it would keep the mast cells under control. Quercetin stabilizes mast cells. The leukotriene would come a little further down the chain, and it would block, or the Singulair would block the leukotrienes. Then you'd have the antihistamine, the type 1 antihistamine, like Claritin, to block type 1 histamine. Then you'd add Pepcid because it would block type 2 histamine, and maybe we could avoid those Conus reactions. But I've floated that around to people and I can't get any traction on it. So we'll see. But we know Conus syndrome does happen to kids. It does happen to adults, and it does happen after vaccines. Okay, so Merck knew its popular asthma drug could lead kids to commit suicide, which is why I'm saying, hey, maybe we don't do the Singulair, because I didn't know about this. Dozens of patients, including many children, died by suicide or suffered from neuropsychiatric problems after taking Singulair, also known as Montelukast, Merck's allergy and asthma medication, according to lawsuits that are finally proceeding after decades of delays and legal challenges. Reuters reported. Merck is accused of downplaying early evidence of Singulair's impact on the brain. These claims later faced intense scrutiny, leading to a raft of lawsuits alleging Merck knew that the drug could impact the brain and that it minimized the potential for psychiatric problems in statements to regulators. Singulair, also known as Montelukast, is available to adults and children as a medication for severe allergies and asthma. The drug blocks chemicals called leukotrienes in the body, which can be involved in the precipitation of asthma. It can cause respiratory symptoms as well as inflammation of the airways. My concern too is that with the I'm seeing a lot of people get put on Singulair who just have allergies and don't have asthma, and that's an off-label use. And I see that a lot in kids. So this is something I wanted you guys to be aware of. The public comments, along with thousands of reports submitted over several years to the FDA Adverse Event Reporting System, FAERS, plus a 2015 research study finding that a substantial amount of Singulair entered the brain, forced the FDA to take action. On March 4th, so they knew about this in 2015. On March 4th, 2020, the FDA required Singulair to carry a black box label, the FDA's most serious warning for serious mental health side effects, according to DrugWatch. In the case of, if your kids are taking Singulair, your grandkids are taking it, or you're taking it, did you know anything about this? I was taking it. I had no idea it had a black box warning. It was one of the drugs that I weaned off of because I don't trust the government. I don't trust China making our drugs, actually. But I don't trust our government making them either. In the case of the Singulair, the label links the drug to suicide, depression, aggression, agitation, suicidal thoughts, and sleep disturbances. Also makes me wonder, we've been wondering about these school shooters. Are they, most of them are on SSRIs or, antidepressants, ADD medicines, drugs for anxiety. And those are all known to cause aggression, suicidal thoughts, homicidal thoughts. I wonder how many may have been on Singulair. And I wonder if the effects are cumulative. So if you're on Singulair plus you're on an SSRI and you're, 12 to 25, does that cause a cumulative effect because you're on two things now? Does it increase the risk? I would think it would. The black box label, and they never test this. They never say, okay, Singulair's got a black box warning for aggression, agitation, suicidal, homicidal thoughts, and so do SSRIs. Is there any study where they test the two of these together and see if that risk goes up? No, there's not, because they don't want to know. The black box label was at least 2 decades in coming, according to Hazelhurst, who said it took over a decade's worth of work by persistent parents, armed with overwhelming evidence. I'm going to have to quit early tonight. I am really not feeling good. Overwhelming evidence of the serious neuropsychiatric side effects, urging the FDA to take action. According to DrugWatch, lawsuits now pending against Merck claim the drug maker knew or should have known before it started selling Singulair in 1998 that the drug could cause neuropsychiatric injuries during treatment even after stopping. Dr. Liz Mumper, a pediatrician, said she's been aware of the potential neuropsychiatric side effects of Montelukast for many years, adding that her patients are instructed to stop the medicine if they notice a change in their mental health. I'm telling you, I've been on that drug for at least 10 years before I quit taking it. No one ever told me that. No pharmacist, no one. Over the years, parents have reported personality changes in their children, rapid changes in mood and irritability. Mumper told the defender, typically these symptoms resolve once off Montelukast. A Reuters investigation report revealed the lawsuits also alleged that the company's own early research indicated the drug could impact the brain, but that Merck downplayed any risks in statements to regulators. No kidding. This is what they always do. These people have paid millions and millions and millions of dollars in fines for illegal activities like these. But the government keeps telling me I should trust them. I don't trust them. When somebody has criminal fines over and over and over again, what is the argument for trusting them? I just don't know. A medical practitioner now needs to understand their patient, the illness, any prescribed medications, what pharma reports about their drug, the real science behind the drug, and unfortunately, the legal doctrine of preemption, which is the principle based on federal law trumping state law. So they kept these lawsuits out of courts based on preemption. And they're like, no, the federal law trumps the state law. You can't go after big pharma on this. I don't know exactly why. Robert Gouveia could probably cover that, but he's another Rumble guy. If you don't know who he is, does a great show. The FDA claims it has diligently monitored reports of side effects possibly associated with montelukast, as well as communicated findings and taken regulatory action when appropriate, and that it continues to monitor and investigate this important issue. Oh. Merck's patent on Singular expired in 2012, allowing generic drug makers to begin producing and marketing the drug. Still, according to Reuters, Singular has provided Merck with about $50 billion in revenue. And I guarantee you, whatever the lawsuits are, it will not. This is the thing. Even when the government fines them, the fines are far, far less than the profit. And I'm like, these fines make no sense. The fines should gouge into the profits. So if you made $10 million profit on a drug, the fine should be $15 million. It should hurt. But they'll make $100 million on a drug and the fine will be $500,000. It makes no sense. I mean, that's just the cost of doing business. It's not a fine. Yeah, basically messing with brain chemicals. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because I'm kind of chilled cold and the thing is set at 75. So normally I'm, as Don calls it, sweating my tits off if it's 72. One of my favorite British saying is tits up. So, if your fish dies, it's gone and it's floating up in the tank, it's gone tits up. Or if you die, I just think that's really clever. Okay, I think this might be the last one. We might end here tonight because I'm feeling rough. This is from the Gateway Pundit. Peru declares national health emergency following unusual increase in Guillain-Barré syndrome that may be linked to COVID vaccine. Shocking, huh? We're not going to follow suit though. 20% of net revenue. I agree, Americus. I think you're right. I think it needs to really hurt. These people don't even fire the people who are in charge of everything that went on that resulted in the illegality. And I'm like, how do these people keep their jobs? It's crazy. Gary Don says, oh crap, I'm on montelukast for allergies causing shortness of breath on occasion. Do I need to go see? I would absolutely talk to your doctor about it. I mean, if you're tolerating it, okay, and you're not, but I would make sure. I think, probably if you're tolerating it, it's fine. Just be aware. But I would still make sure to talk to your doctor so that your doctor is aware of this. Just Google it, montelukast lawsuit, black box warning. And just make sure your doctor knows that there's a black box warning for it, because that might protect somebody else who is having trouble and the doctor can't figure out why. It might trigger in their brain, hey, I wonder if it's that montelukast I started them on. Tits up, Penny. I love that. Get and rest, dear friend. We want you well. I'm praying now and won't stop for you, Penny. You're so sweet. I wore the necklace you made me in the interview that I did with the Asheville Wisdom Exchange. If you go to the Asheville, like Asheville, North Carolina, Asheville, if you go to the Asheville Wisdom Exchange and you go to their past, I think it's like their past presenters or something like that, you can watch the talk that I did with them. I meant get warm, yeah. Okay. Peru declares national health emergency following unusual increase in Guillain-Barré. Peru declared a 90-day health emergency on Saturday after an unusual increase in Guillain-Barré syndrome. Guillain-Barré syndrome, and I've heard people butcher that word like a million times this week. Guillain-Barré syndrome is a rare disease where the body's immune system attacks part of the nervous system. The Gateway Pundit has reported on the increase in Guillain-Barré syndrome following the introduction of the COVID vaccine. We actually see an increase in Guillain-Barré syndrome with many vaccines, with Gardasil, the flu shot, H1N1. I can't think of what else. There's a bunch of them that we see increases in Guillain-Barré syndrome, GBS. Scientists recommend that older people who received Pfizer's RSV vaccine should be monitored for, so this is the new thing. They're pushing Pfizer's RSV vaccine on old people, and they're getting ready to start giving it to babies, because what could go wrong? This comes after 2 older adults who received the shot during clinical trials developed Guillain-Barré syndrome, scientists said in clinical trial results published in the New England Journal of Medicine. I'd be curious to know what the real number is because I don't trust their numbers. If RSV pre-F vaccine is approved and recommended, these adverse events warrant close monitoring in future studies and with real-world data and post-marketing surveillance, the scientist wrote. The study, which published Wednesday, was supported by Pfizer. And a 40-year-old British man was awarded compensation after he was diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome, the Sun Daily reported. The Peruvian government declared a 90-day national health emergency Saturday due to an unusual increase of cases of Guillain-Barré syndrome, which total 165 with 4 deaths, reported Xinhua. The decree published in the official Gazette El Peruano details an action plan which has been drawn up, listen to this, with a budget of 12.12 million soles, 3.3 million US dollars, with an aim to improve, this is their goal, guys, an aim to improve patient care in health facilities, reinforce case control, and prepare informative material for the population and health personnel. What informative material you're going to give them? We've got Guillain-Barré syndrome, because they're not saying it has anything to do with the vaccine. We've got Guillain-Barré syndrome. We don't know why. If your muscles stop working and, starts getting hard to move your diaphragm and be able to get air in and out of your lungs, you might have GBS, and we just have no idea why, but we wanted you to know. How about stopping the vaccine until you figure out if it's causal? Among the measures were the acquisition of intravenous immunoglobulin and human albumin, the drugs used to treat it, as well as specialized diagnosis of the biological agents associated with the syndrome and assisted air transport for patients in emergency. There's nothing here about money to figure out if the causal agent is the COVID vaccine. I mean, are they even going to survey the patients and say, did you have a COVID vaccine? How many did you have? Which one did you have? When was your last one? Figure out how close it is. That just boggles the mind. We're just going to pretend it's like all the kids and babies, newborns with myocarditis in the UK. They're seeing this, I think it's the UK. They're seeing this where these, new babies are coming out with myocarditis and they're dying. They're going to ICU or they're dying. And they just don't have any idea what could be causing it. $25, I'll tell you. Asheville is nasty. Cut me hang out now. Used to be Gold Mountain City. Yeah, my kids, my youngest son, the one who just is getting his car fixed. He and his fiance got engaged in Asheville, but that's been a couple of years ago. I guess a year ago. They'd been to Asheville a couple times before that. Many think the problem comes from the adjuvants used. Oh yeah, I agree. You've got adjuvants in there. You've got the mRNA, you've got the lipid nanoparticles, which are known to cause inflammatory reactions. We know the lipid nanoparticles, none of it stays in the arm like they told you. The lipid nanoparticles cross the blood-brain barrier, they cross the placenta, they cross into breast milk. We find them in the liver. We find the mRNA in the liver. We find the mRNA is able to get into the nucleus of the cell, which they assured us was not possible. The whole thing was just a bunch of BS. That's why I'm worried about this malaria vaccine. I'm worried about these genetically modified mosquitoes because, when does the scientific community get this crap right? And every time they get it wrong, we pay the price for it. And they don't care. They just lie and lie. Oh, it can't be that. Correlation doesn't equal causation. If I have to hear that one more time, I'm going to punch someone in the throat. I'm just over it. That's crazy. At some point, common sense needs to weigh in. It must be climate change. Peru is nearly 100% COVID vaxxed. Yeah, I know. But it's a mystery. Isn't that crazy? Liars. Jones Gary says Cracks and Jackson agree about Asheville. Yeah. I'll have to be careful when I'm in Asheville. I guess I'm staying with the pastor and, I'm sure they'll keep a good watch over me. The Defender, again, this is RFK Jr. If you guys didn't see this, it was really good. RFK Jr. dismantles doctors' pro-vaccine stance in town hall meeting. So I think Was this on ABC? Where was this, guys? Did you watch it with Elizabeth Vargas? I just caught highlights from it. But it was really a good interview. I thought he did a good job. The biggest controversy surrounding Vargas frames the topic this way. The biggest controversy surrounding your candidacy is your stance on childhood vaccines. Nearly every scientific and medical organization, including the CDC and FDA and the AMA, the American Academy of Pediatrics, all say you're wrong on this issue. Yeah, these are all the same people that say you should give COVID vaccines to your 6-month-old and take them while you're pregnant. 104 chat. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, I love the updates. Thank you. Vargas opened the door for Kennedy to not only clarify his position, which he said has been distorted and misrepresented, no matter how many times he's tried to set the record straight, but she also revealed how little thought and research she had done into the controversy, which is true of so many people. They're like, oh, the FDA says it's safe. I'm like, well, the FDA says a lot of things that are just total crap. Kennedy pointed out the reality of the situation. These are not organizations that have independently arrived at their conclusions. The AMA, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and nearly all scientific and medical organizations take information coming from the CDC and FDA as gospel. And I would say the same thing about a lot of the citizens of this country. In other words, if the CDC and the FDA are wrong, the entire medical establishment is wrong. There's a difference between consensus and herd mentality, a fact that never seemed to register with Vargas. So Kennedy's very knowledgeable about this. He's been researching this stuff for years for Children's Health Defense. Kennedy immediately asks the obvious. So you're saying that these organizations claim that vaccines never damage kids? Vargas is forced to backpedal. I don't think anyone is saying they never have. There may be a child here or there. Are you kidding me? But overall, vaccines have saved millions and millions of lives. And I contest this. So President Trump said the other day that the COVID vaccines have saved, some ridiculous 60 million lives. And I'm like, that's not true. Correlation doesn't equal causation. Just because someone had a COVID vaccine, got COVID and didn't die, doesn't mean it had anything to do with the vaccine. Right? And they do that all the time. So if you die 10 minutes after getting the vaccine, they'll tell you correlation doesn't equal causation. But if you have the vaccine and you get COVID and you don't die, they assume that the vaccine saved your life. Or maybe you just weren't going to die from COVID, because most people don't. The double standard is ridiculous. It's maddening. Vargas is demonstrating the lack of understanding the public has about the issue. How can anyone claim that vaccines have saved millions and millions of lives if proper prospective studies with matched unvaccinated controls have never been conducted? And here's the other thing, guys. We talked about this the last Friday night live stream we did. In a lot of these studies, they'll tell you it's a placebo-controlled study. Most people do not realize that the placebo doesn't have to be inert. So inert means it has no effect, like a sugar pill or saline water. A placebo can be whatever big pharma decides it wants it to be, and they don't have to tell you what the placebo was. So in COVID, the information has gotten out that for placebo, they use the meningitis vaccine. Well, the reason that you don't do that is because you're going to have side effects from both of those. You're going to have malaise and muscle pain and fever and irritability. And then they'll say, well, the placebo group had just as much of this as the drug group. But they don't tell you that the placebo group got an active vaccine, just not the one that was in the drug group. So you're not really comparing it to a placebo. You're comparing it to another drug known to cause those things. And so this very much muddies the science, and they do it all the time. Like when new diabetes drugs come out, this is when they'll test it against placebo. So you've got a new diabetes drug called Diabetes X. I'm just making something up, right? And you've got your old standard metformin. Been around for years. Known, safe, and effective, basically. We don't see a whole lot of big issues with metformin. So they will test the new drug against placebo, true placebo. And they're like, look at how great it brought down blood sugars, and look at it brought down triglycerides and all this stuff. They won't normally, like if they do a vaccine, they'll test it against another vaccine and call that other vaccine a placebo. But when it comes to a new drug that they want approved, they'll test it against nothing so that the effects of it seem very magnified. What they should be required to do is test it against the existing drugs we have. So if you have a new drug for a condition that we've got a bunch of old drugs for that are safe and effective, then you ought to have to test that new drug against the current drugs on the market and prove that it's better, prove that it's safer, prove that it's more effective, that it has a broader range of benefit than the drugs that we already have that are $20 a month, but they don't do that. You don't need a new drug that is as effective as the old drug that costs 10 times more. But that's how they get these things through, and the government knows it, and it's just the wool's pulled over our eyes all the time. Yes, you do have to be. My dad is in the Ozempic study. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? The drug is killing him, and he will not get out of the study. So stubborn. I don't think anyone is saying they never. Okay, here we go. Kennedy makes this abundantly clear in his response to Dr. Butt. So Dr. Butt, great name, asks a question. Eradication of chickenpox and polio, the whole idea, eradication of chickenpox, there's nobody that needs a chickenpox vaccine. This is ridiculous. And now what we're seeing is children getting shingles. We never saw that before the chickenpox vaccine. Eradication of chickenpox and polio in the US and in many parts of the world is a result, this is this Dr. Butt telling Kennedy this at the town hall meeting, is a result of regular vaccination. MMR, measles, mumps, rubella, and many diseases are preventable. There is little evidence of these diseases in the vaccinated population. Your vaccine stance is dangerous to the health and well-being of millions. Medical experts are deeply concerned about your message. How can we help you come to the side of science? I think that was a very graciously stated question. I mean, the guy's wrong, but it was gracious. Kennedy admits there is evidence that vaccines have reduced the risk of mortality and morbidity from the diseases they target. However, he argued, without long-term prospective studies around all-cause mortality and morbidity in vaccinated populations, nobody, no matter how educated or how big an organization you represent, can claim there's overall benefit. So what he's saying here is, yes, it might reduce mortality and morbidity from the disease that it targets, right? But if it increases mortality and morbidity from other causes, is it beneficial, right? So if you get the Gardasil vaccine and you never die of HPV virus, a type of herpes virus that can cause cancer, but you get Guillain-Barré syndrome and you die of respiratory failure, does it really matter? Like you get a chickenpox vaccine, right? So you don't get chickenpox, which you weren't going to die from in the first place unless you had HIV or some other immune compromised cancer or something like that. You get the chickenpox vaccine and you don't get chickenpox. But if you get Guillain-Barré syndrome, is that an overall benefit? No, it's not. If you get encephalitis, is it an overall benefit? No, it's not. You'd have been better off with chickenpox. But they automatically assume, they're like, oh, well, thank God you didn't get chickenpox. I'm sorry you've got asthma and autism, but, at least you didn't get chickenpox. And I've made this case many times. I've said, I can take 10 people in the front yard who all have COVID, right? And I can get a mechanical launching device and put these little bullet-shaped things in them and fire the device into 5 of the people's heads, right? And so they will all die. And then the other 5 say they get sick and they end up in the hospital with COVID. I can say that projectile shot from this firearm was 100% effective at preventing hospitalization and death from COVID-19. And that would be true. And that is what our drug companies do. That's how efficacy is done. It is an absolute crime. If it wasn't for the smart chaps in our country like you, Nurse Penny, I would have had the vaccine along with about 4 or 5 boosters. Oh, honey, I'm so glad you didn't. So thank you to those that question the science. Yeah, It was funny that article came out in, was it Axios or the Atlantic? Maybe it was the Atlantic, where the lady was like chastising us for not working harder to bring this our concerns to the attention of people who were considering getting the vaccines. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. You guys maligned us, deplatformed us, demonetized us. I spent I spent most of my time in Facebook jail. It was ridiculous. I'm like, short of tackling you in the vaccine line, what more did you want me to do? Like, took no personal responsibility for the fact that there were those of us, and she knew that we were out there, but saying we didn't work hard enough to convince them. I'm like, you can't convince somebody who doesn't want to be convinced. Kennedy's answer to the question dismantles the issue to the very core, catching Dr. Butt off guard. Could they have gotten a doctor not named Dr. Butt? His methodical response should have proven to the audience that the family medicine doctor has very little grasp of all the available evidence. Dr. Butt clearly wasn't aware of analyses like this one that concludes that a mass varicella chickenpox vaccination is expected to cause a major epidemic of herpes zoster, which is shingles, affecting more than 50% of those aged 10 to 44 years at the introduction of vaccination. Should studies like this guide public policy in the US? They certainly do in the UK, where health officials do not recommend universal vaccinations against chickenpox for precisely the reason Kennedy states. Of all the preventable diseases out there, why would Dr. Butt use chickenpox as an example of how Kennedy's vaccine stance is dangerous to the health and well-being of millions? Could it be that a doctor with a microphone was unaware of the science? Yes, that's exactly it. Was Dr. Butt aware of the enormous tragedy caused by DTP, diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis? That's different than the one we give here. We give diphtheria, tetanus, acellular pertussis here. The DTP vaccine in Africa, after 30 years of observation, it was shown that children vaccinated with the DTP shot were dying of other causes at 10 times the rate of the unvaccinated. We would have never known about this if no one actually looked. The devastation caused by the DTP vaccine is not limited to the continent of Africa. Kennedy informed the audience that the flurry of lawsuits against manufacturers of this vaccine led to the passing of the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act of 1986, which has protected vaccine manufacturers from liability. He's not wrong. So Kennedy did not, and this is what gets me, people label him and others like him an anti-vaxxer, but they won't even listen to the logic that he's using. I don't even know how you could argue this. Though Kennedy did not discuss the MMR and polio vaccines, his point was clear. Unless proper long-term pre-licensure placebo-controlled safety studies are done, we cannot determine if more harm than good is being done. Dr. Butt's response to the likely damage caused by varicella and DTP vaccines was all too predictable. Quote, a person can take a medicine and then get involved in a motor vehicle accident. In other words, correlation does not prove causation. That's where he should have throat punched him. Dr. Butt has good intentions. He's also particularly skilled at picking the weakest example to prove his point. The issue with the varicella vaccine was the resulting increased risk of herpes zoster shingles infections. The issue with the DTP vaccine was the increased risk of death from other prevalent diseases that proved to be more deadly for the kids who received the vaccine. And the thing with shingles is you can get it's like herpetic neuralgia, and I have that. That's why I wear my hair up so much. I got shingles, and it broke out on my face and went into my ear and up my nose and down my throat. And now I have this electrical sensation all the time in my face, and if my hair hits it, it sends this jolt. And so I try to keep my hair up for podcasts so I don't get jolted. I had chickenpox. It wasn't anything like this. The issue, or we're not talking about random traumatic injuries that have nothing to do with immune modulation. Furthermore, was Dr. Butt aware that the correlation does not equal causation argument can be used to, yes, this is what I said, can be used to dismiss vaccine benefits as well. So the fact that you didn't die from COVID, that is not that may be correlated with the vaccine, but it doesn't mean the vaccine caused you not to die from it. It could have just been that your immune system was good and you weren't going to die from COVID like 96% of the population didn't. This double standard is mindlessly applied by vaccine proponents. Trials don't prove causation, only correlation. That goes for efficacy too. On what grounds can one say that a vaccine caused a decrease in the disease it targets while assuring us that it was only correlated with an increase in side effects? Trials just measure the incidence of things in two or more groups of participants. It's a mathematical comparison. No causation is ever proven. Vargas took issue with Kennedy's claim that not one vaccine on the childhood immunization schedule has been subject to a pre-licensure placebo-controlled trial. Vargas said, yes, they have. Kennedy said, no. Vargas said, yeah, they have. And later, Vargas, the FDA says, and in fact, on its website, you can clearly see vaccines go through 3 stages of testing against double-blind placebo. They already do that testing. Kennedy says, Elizabeth, you can say that. Vargas, I'm not saying that. The FDA is saying it. Kennedy, the FDA is not saying that. He's right. Vargas, yes, they do. They say it on their website. Kennedy, they will not tell you that there's a vaccine that has ever undergone a long-term placebo-controlled trial prior to licensing because it's not true. And the FDA webpage does not say that. She is wrong. The reason why this embarrassing and mildly entertaining spectacle is important to dissect is because of what it reveals about the stubbornness we have about being right. Did Vargas actually scour the FDA website prior to this public exchange? No, she just assumes it's there. She couldn't have, for the obvious reason that no such statement from them exists on their website, as she maintained. Why is she so sure she's right? I would venture to say it's because someone whom she trusts more than Kennedy told her that. But was she really listening to what Kennedy was saying? Kennedy demanded a citation from Dr. Anthony Fauci and a face-to-face meeting with him in 2016. Fauci couldn't produce one, but promised he would. He never did. So Kennedy and attorney Aaron Siri sued him and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. After a year of litigation, they finally obtained a written statement from the HHS, which still does not cite a single study, but assures us that the inert placebos are not required to demonstrate safety in childhood studies. So there's no way it said that on the FDA webpage because the HHS is telling him straight out that there's not a single study because inert placebos are not required to demonstrate safety in childhood vaccines. Are they required to establish efficacy? Guess we won't get an answer to that. Kennedy asks Vargas to cite a single pre-licensure placebo-controlled vaccine study. She couldn't because no one can. There aren't any. Kennedy pointed out the real issue. We have a corrupt federal agency, FDA, that is lying to the AMA and all those agencies and all those doctors. But those agencies are controlled by pharma. That's the problem. That is absolutely the problem. And we're going to end it there tonight, guys, because my throat's not going to make it. Let me go back up here. Isn't that weird how you can be totally healthy when you start your show and just gradually slide downhill over a few hours? I'm lost. Is Vargas Dr. Horsebutt? No, Elizabeth Vargas is the person who was moderating. Is she ABC, CBS? I can't remember, guys. She's the one moderating the event, and then there's Dr. Butt, who's it's a town hall meeting. So Dr. Butt gets up and asks a question, and then Kennedy's answering it, and Vargas is arguing with Kennedy. So the moderator's arguing with Kennedy about there being these placebo-controlled trials, and there aren't any. Isaac's mom says, my older sister got encephalitis from the smallpox vaccine and spent a year in the hospital. My brother, I was born, my brother and I are 15 months apart. My brother got an MMR vaccine a few days before my mom went into the hospital to have me. Was walking and talking, and when she came home, he was not walking or talking, and he has an intellectual disability that no one can explain. Current on the taste buds? I missed something. Isaac's mom, the rest of us kids never got the vaccine until I went into the Army. I tried to tell them I couldn't get it, and they made me get it. Thank God. No, yeah, that's where I had my first reaction too. I'd had a minor allergic reaction to a flu shot before the Army. Then I went into the Army and had it listed in my chart that I was allergic to the flu shot, and they gave me one. And I got so sick and spent so much time in the hospital that they ended up giving me an entry-level separation, saying that I wasn't qualified to ever have gone in because I couldn't get all the vaccines. But they knew that when I went in, and they made me terribly sick, and then, just basically booted me. I tried even to go back in because I loved it, but they wouldn't allow it. Craxon Jackson says, I got 2 jabs, 2001, probably saline. Praise Jesus, never do that again. Craxon Jackson, you can go to a website called howbadismybatch.com, and you can pull out your shot record, and on your shot record, there will be a lot number. You can plug that lot number into the little box on that website, and it will tell you. So it's like 90% of the deaths and injuries come from only 10% of the lots, which means these lots are not the manufacturing is not being controlled, because those numbers should be pretty even throughout. They're even with a flu shot. When you look at the flu shots, you have pretty much the same amount of issues among every lot number. But with COVID, you see the COVID vaccines, you see that 90% or more of the deaths and serious injuries are in 10% of the lots. So if you go to howbadismybatch.com, that's all one word, it'll give you an option where you can put in your lot number, and you can see if your lot number is one of the bad batches. Try a little lemon tea and honey. Yeah, I'm going to make some chamomile tea and honey and lemon when I go upstairs and slather myself with Vicks Vapor Rub. I believe in that stuff. Some methylene blue, some iodine, better by morning. Paula says, my son didn't have all of the childhood vaccines. He went into the Army and his immune system took a dump. The penicillin shot alone made him so ill. Yeah. I didn't do Gardasil for my daughter. They wanted them to get the hepatitis vaccines in primary school. And I'm like, why? Hepatitis is only caught by IV drug use, sex, or getting stuck with a needle as a healthcare worker. Why would a middle or primary school child need this? And now they give it to newborns. Tell me why newborns need this. If their mother had hepatitis, they cannot get the vaccine. They have to get immunoglobulin. So it doesn't protect them if they're, I think a lot of people think that, oh, well, if the mother has hepatitis, that vaccine will protect. No, it does not. They have to be treated. There is absolutely zero reason to give anybody who is not having sex a hepatitis series. There's just not. Not using IV drugs, not a healthcare worker. I got it for my kids when they got into middle school, because I thought, okay, they're in middle school now. Things start getting sketchy around high school. Yet there were so many months apart you had to give it. So we did do it then, but I was very selective. I didn't get the chickenpox vaccines for my kids. There was a bunch of them. I can't remember. There was just a bunch. Rotavirus we didn't get. The meningitis series we did not. I think we did one. There was another one. We didn't do that one. I've never gotten them flu shots. I don't feel there's compelling enough evidence to do it. Feel better, Nurse Penny. Good night, Jigsaw. Isaac's mom, it proves how important your show is, because the enemy always tries to attack you. I know, and always on. If something is going to happen, it invariably is going to happen on a show day. The cat got sick, bad enough that she was in shock by the time we got to the vet on a Friday. It always happens on this day. You're right. I hadn't noticed that. I am and will continue to pray against his attacks on you, my dear friend. Craxon Jackson. Yep. Got my lot numbers. Good job. America's storage issues. I missed something, sweetheart. What is that in reference to? Storage issues. Lady Jack, speaking of iodine, what is a good dose? So with iodine, I like to start slow. If you're using 2% Lugol's iodine, you can have some like flushing sensations. You can have acne. It's not caused by the iodine. It's caused by, what is the name of that? It's in the bromide. So there's bromide in bread, and it's in a lot of other things too. And the bromide clings to the iodine receptors. There's some other things that cling to it as well. It's not supposed to be there. but it clings to those receptors. And as it comes off and it gets into your body and the iodine's trying to eliminate it, it can cause like cystic type acne, all kinds of issues like that. So I think slow is better. To help flush that bromide out of your system, you need extra salt. And Hylands, Hylands, you can get it on Amazon, is the salt that I like. I put 1/8 of a teaspoon in bottled water twice a day just to help those things get off those receptors. And so um, I had the really bad trouble with acne when I started on the Lugol's iodine. I went to Nash and iodine, and the other day I did an iodine patch test, which is where you take iodine and you paint like a square on your wrist till it's pretty brown, like 2 coats. And you can use the Lugol's iodine to do that. That's what I use. And if it's still there 10 hours later, then you are iodine sufficient, meaning you've got enough iodine in your body that it's not drinking it off your skin. And I've been on it for a while, and mine was gone in about 4 or 5 hours. It takes a while to get your iodine levels up because it's not just your thyroid. It's in every cell of your body, especially your breast tissue, prostate, testicles, ovaries. You need iodine there. That's why so many people have ovarian cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer, because they're so iodine depleted. So usually what I tell people is if you're going to try the 2%, Lugol's iodine, J-Crowe, Jcrowe, you can get it on Amazon. Theirs is really good. It's made in this country. You don't have to worry about it coming from China. Great brand. And I would just start, with a drop twice a day and see how you do. And if you're feeling okay, add another drop the next day. I'm up to taking a dropper and a half full tonight because I'm not feeling good. I'll probably go up and take 2 droppers full in some orange juice. I don't take it with the methylene blue. You don't want to take them together. And I'll take a big old wallop I'll take like 50,000 international units of vitamin D. I'm guessing that's why I'm getting sick, because I've not taken my vitamin D in forever. I keep forgetting. So I'll hit it with those 2 things and it'll knock out whatever it is. I'll be fine by Sunday. I've never had it not work quickly. But yeah, just work slowly up. If you want to read about, or if you want to see videos on iodine, look for Dr. Brownstein, Brownstein, I think. He's got so many great videos on iodine, how to use it, what companion nutrients like magnesium, vitamin C. You don't want to take your vitamin C near your iodine because iodine is an oxidant and vitamin C is an antioxidant. So you want to take them apart from each other. Yes, prostate cancer does suck. My father-in-law had it. And so we're trying to take really good care of Don so that he doesn't, because he's got a family risk for it. How bad is my batch? BATCH. Howbadismybatch.com. Yes, Paula. Paula's got it right. I'm misspelling batch. Yeah, you've got it now. Howbadismybatch.com. Does it matter what kind of salt? I wouldn't use table salt. I would use like a sea salt. I like the Hylands, Hylands. Hylands salt is really good salt. Has lots of micronutrients in it that you need that you don't get from regular salt. Good night, Jones. Can you put his name in the chat? Yes, I can. Dr. David. Let me make sure I'm spelling it right. I've got a little window open over here. I can check it. YouTube search Dr. David iodine. Yeah, that's it. Let me see if I can find just a quick video to pop up. And if you're taking iodine, you have to take selenium with it, 200 micrograms. Any selenium is fine, because iodine helps make T4, thyroid hormone type 4. And that's the inactive form of thyroid hormone. If you don't have enough selenium in your system, then you can't convert T4 to the active form of thyroid hormone, which is T3. So you've got to have selenium with it. Let me see if I can find a basic. And I think he uses the Lugol's. I think he uses, I don't know if he uses Nashant too. There's debate back and forth on whether Nashant or Lugol's. I found that I got iodine sufficient quicker on Lugol's than I did on Nashant, but I didn't have side effects with Nashant. Hold on, I'm trying to get this link in here for you. What the heck? Let's try that again. All right, now share. Copy. Okay, let's try this. There you go. Anyway, that's the guy. If that's not a great iodine video, just look around and you'll find a bunch more videos that he's done. Off the subject, have Don give you a nice back. Don is dead to the world, I'm sure. It was 90 yesterday here. It was like 88 degrees and 95% humidity today. And he works outside, black clothes, little yellow stripe on his. He works for a company called Boyd Cat, and he works on big equipment. And outside in the heat all day, he's just dead when he gets home. Poor guy. We're hoping he can advance to something inside. Isaac's mom, off the subject, can you please tell me again where I can look for the interview you did? Oh, the one on, yeah, let me find that for you. Hold on. Let me get this screen where I can see it. It's called Asheville. Oh, came right up. Asheville Wisdom Exchange. And it is past event highlights. And there it is. That was easy. Hold on, I'm getting you the link right now. Copy. I need to remember to put this in the show notes. I keep forgetting. I lost you guys. Where are you? Hold on. Let me pull this chat up so I can. Yes, stop. Oh, no. Oh, there you are. There you go. That's the link to the talk I did on my near-death experience. It was a really good group. They had good questions. Very, very sweet and accommodating. Don't want you to keep talking. Okay, there you go. What happens when they take the prostate gland out? Well, so the prostate, okay, let me get you something here so I can describe this to you. I used to do a lot of these surgeries or recoveries for patients who had these surgeries. Okay, so this is the urethra, right? So this is the tube that runs from the bladder down to the end of the penis, right? And that's where the pee comes out, semen comes out during sex, right? So the prostate gland wraps around that. And as the prostate gets inflamed or gets cancer or whatever, it gets harder and firmer, and then it compresses the urethra and it makes it more difficult to pee. Can cause sexual difficulties as well. And so when they take the prostate out, so what happens when you're having sex, just basic reproduction here, when you're having sex, semen comes from the prostate, fluid comes from the prostate, up through gosh, I can't even remember how that works now. Anyway, the prostate is part of it. I'll look up human reproduction again. But anyway, so when you take out the prostate, because it's wrapped around the urethra, then the urethra is free again, and it can pass urine more readily. The problem is that because it loses, the urethra loses some of its tone, you can have some bladder leakage, like stress incontinence. So when you sneeze or whatever, bear down, you can have some stress incontinence. They've got some procedures that make that not so much a problem. The other problem you can get if you have your prostate out is erectile dysfunction. They use pumps, different things to try to help with that. I've not worked in that field in a long time, so I don't know what developments there have been to improve that. But those are some of the issues that you generally see. You're having the surrounding lymph nodes out. The lymph nodes shouldn't be an issue. Sometimes when they take the lymph nodes out, this is true for cancers of the breast as well. So they'll take out the lymph nodes here. If you're having your prostate out, lymph nodes in the abdomen. I've not seen it with prostate surgery, but you can have some fluid accumulation in the scrotum when they take the lymph nodes out, because lymph fluid moves through those, and it's harder for the lymph to move once you take the nodes out. I've seen a little bit of that, like just immediately post-op with people, but it generally clears up. With women, I see more of a problem where they'll take the breast and then they'll take the surrounding lymph nodes that are the axillary lymph nodes up under the arm. And so then they'll have a really hard time returning fluid back out of the arm, and they'll have fluid build up in the arm a lot. You can't do blood pressure in the affected arm anymore after that because it can cause serious fluid buildup. I'm worried about post-surgery nerve damage and no more erection and a bag on my leg. So if they told you that you'll have to have a catheter to go home, generally we do send our folks home with catheters. Because in the hospital, you'll have a catheter, if they still do it this way. It has been a long time, probably 10 years since probably about 10 years since I've worked with patients post-op from prostate surgery. So we'll put a catheter in them, and what we do is there's a little port on the catheter, and we flush saline up in there to help get the clots and stuff out of the bladder. They'll give you a drug. I should be a nurse practitioner. They'll give you a drug. They'll usually give like a suppository of belladonna, which is a homeopathic thing, but it helps stop those spasms of the bladder. That's the thing that drives everyone crazy after surgery, is that constant feeling like most guys haven't had a bladder infection, but for gals, you're kind of doing the pee dance because you feel like you're going to wet yourself. You kind of have that spasmy kind of feeling like you've got to pee urgently. And so we'll flush saline up in there, and it'll help with that. The belladonna helps with that. Plus you'll get pain medicine. But have you talked to your urologist about your concerns for sexual function after surgery? I would really talk to him and make sure you've got a urologist and I'll look into this some more for you. Make sure that you've got a urologist that, sometimes you get these doctors as you get older. I see it with hysterectomies all the time. You'll have a doctor that's doing a hysterectomy because a woman has fibroid tumors, which aren't cancerous in the uterus, or maybe she's got ovarian cancer and they're going to do a total hysterectomy. And they always want to take the cervix. And I always tell women, do not let them do that. They're like, oh, well, you'll never have to worry about cervical cancer again. You may never have an orgasm again. And that's really important to us. They act like because you're a woman and you don't need to have an orgasm to have sex, you don't need to have an erection. You can have sex whether you enjoy it or not, that it doesn't matter. And I'm like, no, why would you take more than you need to take? So if you're going to have a hysterectomy, you can say, hey, I want you to spare my cervix, leave it intact. You have a lot less chance if you leave the cervix intact of having a prolapse, having your uterus fall through or your bladder fall through. Because as you get older, that blind pouch they make at the end where they take the cervix out just kind of fails, and the uterus will start to push down into the vagina, or the bladder will start to, well, if they take the uterus out, it wouldn't, but the bladder will start to push down into the vagina and herniate into the vagina. So you want them to leave your cervix if at all possible. And if they tell you, oh, well, then you don't have to worry about cervical cancer. If you currently don't have abnormal cells or cervical cancer, you want to keep your cervix. So I would ask the doctor, I would say, hey, look, I would like to be able to enjoy sex after this. Is there any kind of procedure that could spare part of the prostate, and just see, what the heck? Just see how educated your doctor is on it. You don't have to go with a doctor that, is real old school and doesn't know anything about it. You'll get some old school doctors that are like, oh, he's 60 or whatever. I don't know how old you are. His sex life isn't that important anymore. Well, I'm sure it's quite important to men, no matter how old they are. So I would definitely ask those questions. You can look around. Let me do some research, and then I'll bring this up again on Friday, and we'll see because I'm sure there's other men out there that wonder about this or worry about it. You guys, if you've got embarrassing questions, ask them, because chances are I've been asked before, and 9 times out of 10, there is somebody else in the chat that is too embarrassed to ask that question and wants to know. Hold on, I got some comments over here. Great information. Oh, thank you, Kate. Seriously. Kate, I didn't see your comments, sweetheart. My comment section closed over there. That happens on most of the lives you do. Oh, that's cool. I didn't know you live stream, Kate. I joined so late, got so much info in 10 minutes. I'm so glad. I knew I loved you the second I saw you on Anthony Jean's channel. You're very sweet. That's the iodine I use, but avoid giving Amazon money and get it straight from. Yes, you can order J. Crow's Lugal's iodine straight from the manufacturer. I've got a liter bottle of it in case of nuclear fallout or something. And then I've got a bunch of the little bottles too. I took a bunch of it. You can inhale it in a nebulizer, just put a drop of it in distilled water, put it in a nebulizer. If you're getting something like, I'm going to do that when I go up tonight. It's a mucolytic, so it breaks up mucus. It's also antibacterial and antiviral and antifungal even. And so if you put a drop of it in distilled 5 milliliters, a teaspoon of distilled water, 1 drop of 2% Lugal's iodine, you can actually nebulize that. I'm not a doctor and I'm not giving medical advice. I'm just telling you about what I do. And if I've got something like this going on, and I'll take the oral Lugal's, I'll take a big dose of vitamin D3, take a dose of K2. I take that every day anyway. And then I'll do the nebulizer. And I mean, within 48 hours, I'm 100%. I'm worried about, post-surgery derm. You shouldn't have to have a catheter, long past surgery. Sometimes cracks, and what'll happen is the bladder this happens with women too. Any kind of pelvic surgery, the bladder can kind of get stunned. And so it won't pee on its own. So they'll take the catheter out and you won't be able to pee. And they'll give you so long. And if you can't pee, then they have to recatheterize you. But like when I had my hysterectomy, it really stunned my bladder. And so I went home with the catheter and I had to do bladder training. So what you do is there's a little clamp on the catheter tubing that's out of your body, the part that's hanging out. And you clamp that, and you don't have to worry about the catheter falling out. When we put a catheter up into the bladder, it's just a tube like this. But on the end of this tube is a little reservoir, and the tube goes up into the bladder. And as soon as we see urine come down, we know we're in the right spot, because with a woman, you can accidentally catheterize a vagina. And so it goes up into the bladder, and then there's a little port in it, and we hook up a little syringe of saline, and we push the saline into this port and a balloon inflates. And so here's your bladder. This balloon sits here and it keeps that tube from falling out, right? So you don't have to worry about, be careful. Don't be like jump roping with the thing. But what was I going to tell you about that? So sometimes you'll have to do bladder training with folks to kind of get that bladder to wake back up, because when you put a catheter in, the urine is draining all the time. And the nerves in the bladder forget about holding on to urine because it's always draining out constantly. So what they'll do is they'll have you clamp off that tubing so urine can build up in the bladder. And so your bladder, the nerves will be like, oh yeah, my bladder's full, and it'll start remembering what it's supposed to do. So then every couple of hours, you'll just undo that little clamp and the urine will run out, and then you'll reclamp it. It took me, I want to say I had the catheter for almost 2 weeks before I could retrain my bladder, but it's fine now. You said you went to 2 doctors, got Levine Cancer Center, Charlotte. It is scary. Yes, it's absolutely scary, and rightly so that you should be concerned. The thing with prostates is they're just a tough organ to deal with. The prostate is really dense, for one thing. And once you get prostate cancer, it gets even more dense, called hypertrophy. And it's very difficult to get medication into the prostate. So sometimes you'll get like a chronic little prostatitis, prostate infection. And they are almost impossible to clear up because it is so hard to get concentrations of antibiotics high enough that will stay in the prostate. Get in it first and then stay in it. It's just a hard little organ to treat once it starts having problems. It's why I recommend men take Lugal's iodine and selenium and stay iodine sufficient, because it's very protective of the testicles and the prostate, as well as the ovaries and the breasts. And Dr. Brownstein does a lot of videos on that, so I would look into that. Anything that applies to the breasts and the ovaries is also going to apply to the testicles and the prostate. I had catheter before, thanks to diverticulitis. Yeah, took 2 weeks. to take a shit. Did you have a bowel resection with the diverticulitis, or did they just remove the diverticuli? Radiation therapy, beam, or pellets? Are they giving you the option? I mean, I know a lot of people that. So, are you not having the prostate removed then? Why is my computer keep going to sleep? If you're not having the prostate removed, then you avoid a lot of these concerns. The pellets work well. I've got a lot of patients have pellets. I'll have to look up the radiation beam therapy. Most of my patients were pellets patients, but I'll look that up and I'll bring some more information on that on Friday. And I'll look up the Levine Cancer Center in Charlotte too. Hold on, let me make a note for myself. Otherwise, I'll forget what hospital, and I'll see what kind of record they've got. Levine Cancer. I mean, are they giving you any advice on diet, things like that? Because there are diets that are, some diets are better than others if you have cancer. Levine Cancer Center. Correction. Prostate cancer. And I'll be praying about it too. And I appreciate you guys sharing your personal stuff. You know, we do try to pray for each other here. 3 options. Okay, so what are the 3? So complete removal of the prostate, radiation therapy, beam, and pellets. Are those the 3? It'd be nice if you could avoid having to have the prostate removed. It's always better if you can avoid having organs taken out. But I mean, there's the cancer to consider too, and a lot of times getting, where that. Did they stage your cancer? What stage are you? Radiation therapy, beam, or pellets? Okay, got that. Yeah, so I'd be curious to know what your staging is, because you've got spread to local lymph nodes. Do you have spread to distant lymph nodes? Yeah, a lot of men go through this, and a lot of men do not feel comfortable asking questions about it. I'm so glad you did. Actually, I think what I'll do is I'll probably cut this part of the video and make a video of its own about the prostate, because I think this is a good talk to have. And I'll definitely educate myself some more, since it's been a long time since I've worked with post-op prostatectomies. Yeah, what's your Gleason score? Gleason score. So I know you've got spread to local lymph nodes. Do you have any spread to your spine or anything like that? I think that's where prostate cancer likes to go. Prostate cancer spread. Lymph nodes. What's really interesting about cancer, I mean, I know it's scary. What's really interesting about cancer is, so say you've got breast cancer that spreads to the brain. You don't then have brain cancer. Did you know that? You have breast cancer that's spread to the brain, so it's still breast cancer. Like if you have prostate cancer that spreads to the spine, you don't have spinal cancer, you have prostate cancer in the spine. Interesting. Respectfully odd. You've shared enough. Okay, that's fine. I will look all of that up, and that way I can familiarize myself on what the newer treatments are and stuff, and then I'll do a little thing on it on Friday. And I appreciate you sharing. That's great. There will be guys that will watch this that will be very helped by it, and they'll be more comfortable to ask questions. So yeah, absolutely. That was a great talk. We've done this before on different issues. We've talked about one of our viewers, Lady Be Good, has a family member that has and she and I have talked about this in front of people. Transverse myelitis. IMNE. What that means. And so it was interesting because after we had that talk, a couple different people got with me because they had family members with transverse myelitis, and they didn't even have like the most basic nutritional things, supplements they should take. I'm here. It's okay. You can say it. Yeah. And so I've had people get with me since that have had transverse myelitis after vaccines, after other, I don't know what is up with this computer, keeps trying to die. And it opened up that conversation, which then opened up a bunch of people reached out to me about MS. And that's when I started doing the methylene blue research, because it's apparently helps regenerate the nerves for MS. So that might be something to think about, Lady Be Good. America, also, if you can, anything on newer treatment for slow prostate cancer. Let me add that. New treatment options. Slow prostate cancer. And I also want to look up preserving sexual function. Slow prostate cancer and retaining sexual function. All right, got a bunch of stuff. And somebody had asked me, I don't know if that person is here, somebody had asked me about, I'm going to lose the word, where you have it's not melasma, where you have where your skin starts losing its pigmentation. What's that called, guys? I'm looking here. I've got it in a note because I took a bunch of notes on it. And I couldn't remember who it was that asked me about it, and I wanted to get the information to her. What's it called? Do you guys remember what that's called, where people skin losing pigment? It's called vitiligo. Somebody had asked me about vitiligo, and I had not read up on vitiligo in a long time, and there is a ton of new information out about vitiligo. So if you watch this video and you're the person that asked me about that, please shoot me an email, because I have a ton of information on it for you. Just stuff that in the last 5 years, there's been so much research into vitiligo, how it's an autoimmune disease, all kinds of things. But yeah, I will look into the slow prostate cancer. I will look into the different treatments. And I will be praying for you, Cracks and Jacks and Lady Be Good. I'm always praying for you. You guys, if you need prayer, let me know. I have a list I keep so that I don't forget to pray for you. And when I say I'm praying for you, I take it seriously. Okay, I'm going to pray us out because it's 12 and my throat is really hurting. Make sure I got all the comments off YouTube. Yes, I did. All right, here we go, guys. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for tonight and for everybody being here and being so active in the chat. I love that we have this back and forth, and it's not the Nurse Penny show, it's our community show, and it just means a lot to me to have people participate and even redirect the course of the show to things that are important to them, because I want to be here in service of them. And I just want to be your light to your people. And Father, I just want to thank you so much for everybody who donated to the GoFundMe for Jacob's car repairs. And the fact that we hit $4,000 in 8 days was just incredible. I thank you to everybody that donated. Thank you to the donor that brought us in up to goal. And I just pray that you would bless them tenfold for how they have blessed me and my son. It means the world to me. And I love that we have a family here that takes care of each other. This is just how it's supposed to be. It's how we're supposed to be living life. And it's very hard to do locally, but the internet has given, this is one of the good side effects of the internet, is that we can, if we work hard at it, we can build community and love each other from a distance. And that's so important. I thank you for everybody that's here. I pray for everybody that is here now, everybody who will watch on Rewind. Father, I pray that something I say would bless their lives. If they've got questions, I pray that you would help me find the answers and the specific answer for that person, because each person is an individual and there's not a one size fits all. And I want you to help me hone in on exactly what that person needs to hear and help guide me to the knowledge that I need to help that person along their journey. Father, thank you so much for our friends and our family here. And we most of all thank you for Jesus. It's in his name we pray. Amen. All right, guys. I love you. Whole big bunches. 103. Okay, let me write that down. Just waiting for that number. And 3. Okay, I'll have to look that up. You're good now. Have to make a decision. I'm praying for you, buddy. I'm praying. It's not easy. I've been through a bunch of medical stuff. I feel for you. Vitiligo. Yeah, you got it, Lady Be Good. Hopefully the person who asked me about that will watch this and say, hey, it was me. I wanted to know about vitiligo because I want to help them out. You're welcome, buddy. All right, guys. I love you whole big bunches. I will see you. Oh, Wednesday book club. I think we're good. I'm having my CAT scan on my shoulder on Tuesday. So I think it's going to tell us what we already know, that we've got to go in and do another surgery, but it is what it is. We'll get through it. Let me make sure that book club is definitely on Wednesday this week. If I could remember where my calendar is. Yeah, we'll be starting. I think we're starting in chapter 11 or 12 on the Giver, and that will be yes, on Wednesday at the normal time, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. And hi, Janik. And hey, Kay, you came in late, love. And then Friday night live stream will be back on Friday, barring any weird cat ailment. Thank goodness Abby is doing so much better. Again, thank you guys for the prayers. It really meant the world to me to get on and see your comments. And Wolf was even commenting, that trying to help me figure out what to do with her. And that just means a lot to me that you guys even care about my pets. But anyway, I love you whole big bunches. I will see you guys on Wednesday. I'll be praying for you. In the meantime, my email, all my contact information is in the description. If you want to support the show, thank you to those who donated during the show. If you want to support the show, there's multiple options: Venmo, Cash App, PayPal. Every payment you make helps divert the cost of the show for me. And I really, really appreciate it. I'm sure we got that last comment. We did. So I will see you guys on Wednesday. Love you whole big bunches. Nurse